Chapter 282. Absorbed Realm Wind Insect Crystal. Attained Wind Elemental Primordial Energy Skill, Returning Wind. Isn't it Realm Wind? Zhou was somewhat disappointed. He had already witnessed the power of Realm Wind. He had originally hoped that it would be Realm Wind, but to his surprise, it wasn't. He carefully looked at Returning Wind's information and saw that it was a Wind Elemental Passive Primordial Energy Skill. It couldn't be used actively and could only be used when certain conditions were met. Returning Wind requires a Saber Aura-type Primordial Energy Skill to trigger, producing a Returning Wind effect. Zhou didn't know what the Returning Wind effect meant, but he did know a Saber Aura-type Primordial Energy Skill. It was the Astral Slash Blade that he had obtained from the mutated Demonized General. However, Zhou had combined the three skills into one, fusing them into the demonic Astral Wheel. Now, Zhou didn't know if it was still considered a Saber Aura-type Primordial Energy Skill. Since I've already learned it, I'll give it a try. Zhou continued walking forward and arrived at the hiding spot of a Realm Wind insect. As he drew his saber, he used the Demonic Astral Wheel Primordial Energy Skill. A sanguine beam slashed out from the bamboo blade, forming a ring of sanguine light. Like a saw blade, it sliced the stone pillar into two, killing the Realm Wind insect inside. Zhou sheathed his saber and was about to walk over to check the Realm Wind insect's corpse to see if there were any crystals inside when he saw a sanguine beam flash. The astral wheel that Zhou had previously slashed out flew back. Thankfully, Zhou reacted quickly enough to dodge. Otherwise, he would have been struck by his own primordial energy skill. Crack! The demonic astral wheel slashed at the stone wall behind Zhou, splitting it into two before vanishing. This returning wind is rather interesting. Zhou was somewhat surprised. Typical primordial energy skills couldn't be controlled after being slashed out. However, returning wind allowed the slashed demonic astral wheel to have the possibility of being controlled. Young Master Wind's Saber Aura is very strange. It seems to be somewhat similar to the legendary Spiraling Saber Aura, but it's not quite the same. The Spiraling Saber Aura wins with technique. The Saber Aura follows an arc, making it difficult to predict, but it lacks destructive power. Young Master One, your saber beam is extremely domineering, but it's also extremely strange. It's impossible to guard against it. If I hadn't seen this saber strike before, I would never have imagined that the saber beam could return. There's a high chance that I would be severely injured or even die, Lu Yunxian said. I haven't been learning for long, so I haven't mastered it yet. Sorry for the embarrassment, Zhou said. Then you really have to practice it properly. This kind of technique will often have miraculous effects on the battlefield. However, Lu Yunxian said seriously, a battle on the battlefield is all about a one-hit kill. Everyone is fighting with all their might, but if a saber were to suddenly slash at them from the back, I'm afraid not many people can dodge it. All right, Zhou nodded. We'll talk about it in the future. It's more important to find in Sheng and company now. Zhou was rather familiar with the ruin's interior. Previously, he had deliberately taken a detour to kill the Realm Wind insect. Now that he had obtained the wind crystal he wanted and absorbed it, he didn't take any detours. He headed for the entrance of the underground tunnel. Young Master One, could that be the underground entrance that Lu Qingji? No, Mei mentioned. Lu Yunxian said as he pointed at a dilapidated building. The building was squarish like a stone box. Only one side was empty. From the empty side, one could see a stone staircase that led underground. On both sides of the stone steps, one could see two strange stone statues. The one on the left was like a tiger, but it had wings on its back. The one on the right was like a bird, but it had two bull-like horns on its head. It should be here. Zhou obviously knew that this was the entrance to the underground tunnel. He had come here many times in-game, but he had never entered. Not seeing in Sheng and company here left Zhou, who had expected it, somewhat disappointed. In that case, he could only enter the tunnel to find them. I wonder if this thing can replace the effects of stone artifacts? Zhou glanced at the stone egg in the chaos space and felt somewhat depressed. Young Master One, I'll go in and take a look first, Lu Yunxian said. Don't go in yet. It's dangerous here. It doesn't matter if we get trapped, but if we lose the stone artifact, it won't be worth it, Zhou said. Then what should we do? Lu Yunxian asked. Let's wait a day or two. If Ensheng hasn't come out by then, we'll go in. Zhou needed time to understand the situation in the underground tunnel. Otherwise, he would be sending himself to his death. After all, he was only at the legendary stage. His cultivation level wasn't strong enough, so he couldn't forcefully barge in like Ensheng and Ouyang Lan. If an accident happened, he might not be able to deal with it due to his lack of strength. Lu Yunxian followed Zhou Wen's lead. Since Zhou Wen had said so, he had no objections. Stay here and wait for Ensheng and company to come out. I'll clean up the worms in the ruins to prevent them from encountering trouble after they come out. As Zhou Wen spoke, he was about to leave when he suddenly heard a strange sound coming from the underground tunnel. Zhou Wen listened attentively. The sound resembled the sound of a train running on the tracks. Clang, clang. It was very rhythmic, as though there was a train running underground. Furthermore, the sound was getting louder and louder. Looking at the pitch-black stone steps, it was as though a train would rush out at any moment. It's a pity that Truth Listener is evolving. Otherwise, with its ability, it would be able to figure out what's going on inside. Zhou Wen was already beginning to miss Truth Listener's ability. It was just too versatile and could solve many problems. If I remember correctly, there wasn't a railway here in the past. There shouldn't be a train here. Could it be that there's something similar to a train in myths and legends? Lu Yunxian listened for a while and also felt that the sound resembled a train. Zhou Wen shook his head in silence. In this era, he wouldn't find it unbelievable that a spaceship would come out from underground. The two of them stared warily at the stone steps. It was pitch black inside, like the huge mouth of a monster from hell. They couldn't see anything, but they could hear the clanging sounds getting louder and louder. It was as though a train was about to come out. Zhou Wen and Lu Yunxian looked at each other and took a step back. They stood on both sides of the stone passageway. If a train really rushed out, it wouldn't directly hit them. As the sound got closer, Zhou Wen felt that a train was about to rush out. In the darkness, Zhou Wen seemed to see a train's headlights flickering. There's really a train down there? Lu Yunxian also saw the light and couldn't help but say in surprise, I don't know if it's a train, but that thing is about to come out. Be careful. Zhou Wen summoned Dr. Darkness and made him possess him in his soul form. Then, he used Dr. Darkness's light of penetration to look into the dark tunnel. Chapter 283. Zhou Wen's eyes were like two miniature searchlights, shooting out two beams that illuminated the dark underground tunnel. Although the main effect of this skill was X-ray vision, it wasn't difficult to see in the dark. However, the illumination distance was a little short, and the light of penetration couldn't reach too far. The sound that resembled a train in the darkness wasn't far from the exit of the tunnel. When Zhou Wen took a look, his expression immediately turned odd. There was really a vehicle in the dark tunnel. It was coming up, but it wasn't a train. Instead, it was a strange vehicle made of stone and wood. The style of the carriage was very old. The carriage had a square back, and it looked like a chariot pulled by horses in ancient times. However, this carriage didn't have any horses or other creatures pulling it. At the very front of the carriage was a humanoid puppet. The puppet stood on the pedals of the carriage, holding a rocking arm with both hands. Its body moved up and down, pushing the rocking wheel rhythmically. As the rocker spun, the strange vehicle made of stone and wood moved up the stone steps. The stone wheels collided with the edge of the stone steps, producing clanging sounds. It moved at a slow speed. Beside the puppet was a wooden pole with a stone lamp hanging on it. The light that Zhou Wen and Lu Yunxian had seen was emitted from the stone lamp. Apart from the puppet, there were no other creatures in the vehicle. It was as though the puppet was driving the strange vehicle. The puppet was also strange. It looked like a human, but its face was flat. There were no facial features carved on it, making it look very strange. Zhou Wen had only taken a few looks when the strange wooden carriage had already reached the entrance of the tunnel. Then it slowly came to a stop. Zhou Wen and Lu Yunxian sized up the strange vehicle warily. However, after the strange vehicle left the stone tunnel, it stopped moving. The puppet on it seemed to have run out of clockwork. It stopped there, maintaining the rocker arm motionless. Lu Yunxian leaped up, but he didn't approach the vehicle. He only wanted to jump up to see what was inside. Lu Ning. After Lu Yunxian rose to a certain height, he looked into the carriage and shouted. Zhou also flew up and looked into the truck bed. He saw that there was only a woman lying inside. She looked like she had fainted. Apart from that, there was nothing else. The truck bed was empty. Zhou might know the woman. She was Lu Ning, who had come with Enchantment. Zhou had a deep impression of her, especially her snow fox. It had powerful ice elemental powers that left Zhou envious. I'll go see if she's dead, Lu Yunxian said as he prepared to jump onto the strange vehicle. Don't go yet. Zhou had a nagging feeling that the strange car was somewhat odd. He stopped Lu Yunxian and used the demonic astral wheel to suck in the car. Lu Ning, who was unconscious in the back of the truck, was immediately sucked out and flew towards Zhou palm. Having learned his lesson from Lu Qingji, Zhou was much more vigilant. He didn't touch Lu Ning's body and instead retracted his strength, causing Lu Ning's body to fall to the ground. He didn't know if she was dead or not. She didn't react at all when she fell to the ground. She just lay there motionlessly. Zhou first used the transparent light to look at Lu Ning and realized that her heart was still beating. Her bodily functions seemed normal. However, what was strange was that there were many snake-like worms squirming along her blood vessels. It looked abnormally terrifying. Zhou roughly knew that the reason Lu Ning was unconscious was likely due to the worms in her blood vessels. The worms looked like snakes, but their bodies were extremely slender like strands of hair. They squirmed in her blood vessels and even burrowed into her heart and other organs. She's still alive. There doesn't seem to be any injuries on her body. Her heart is also beating, but for some reason, she's unconscious, Lu Yunxian said as he checked Lu Ning's body. Her raincoat is already torn. It can't withstand the blood rain here. It's not convenient to treat her here either. Bring her back to the tent and ask her what happened after waking her up. Seeing that the hair-like worms showed no signs of burrowing out, Zhou got Lu Yunxian to wrap Lu Ning in the raincloth he had brought and carry her out of the ruins. Zhao Xian and company were alarmed when they saw that Zhou and Lu Yunxian had come out unscathed and had even brought someone back. Lu Ning, what happened to her? Zhao Xian was alarmed when he saw Lu Ning. He knew how powerful Lu Ning was. Her ice elemental primordial energy art was considered top-notch at the epic stage. With the help of many excellent grade companion beasts, there weren't many people at the epic stage who could defeat Lu Ning. Now that Lu Ning had been brought back by Zhou and company in an unconscious state, it meant that the situation down there was probably very bad. What happened? How are Adjutant and the rest? Zhao Xian asked. I don't know. When we arrived at the entrance of the underground tunnel, we happened to see her come out. Now, we can only wake her up before we know what happened down there, Zhou said. Let me try. I have a rejuvenation vine, companion beast. It has pretty good healing abilities, Zhao Xian said, as he summoned a plant-type companion beast. It was a green vine that wrapped around Lu Ning's body like a snake. The sprouts climbed onto Lu Ning's face and reached in her nostrils, mouth, and ears, secreting a liquid that resembled clear water. The liquid had pretty good healing effects. Even a heavily injured person would typically be able to wake up temporarily. However, Zhao Xian kept urging the rejuvenation vine to secrete the liquid, but he failed to wake Lu Ning up. Strange. If it's just an injury, even if it's a brain injury, the rejuvenation juice would still be effective. Why isn't she reacting at all? Could she have been hit by a primordial energy skill like hypnosis? Zhao Xian wore a puzzled look. The others didn't have any healing abilities either. They looked at each other, unable to come up with a good solution. Don't waste your companion beast's energy. Let it rest for a while. It'll still be useful later, Zhou said to Zhao Xian. Young Master One, do you have a solution? At some point in time, Zhao Xian had changed the way he addressed Lu Yunxian. Let's give it a try. It's a desperate attempt, Zhou said as he flipped his wrist. As Zhou spoke, he flipped his wrist and a strange force condensed in his hand, turning into a metal syringe. Walking to Lu Ning's side, Zhou stared at her like a searchlight. At the same time, he stabbed the syringe into Lu Ning's arm. He had learned some knowledge about injecting drugs in school, but it was the most basic knowledge. Furthermore, it was only in theory and had never been put into practice. Zhou was only giving a try to see if Dr. Darkness's poison could kill the strange worms in Lu Ning's body. Chapter 284. Zhou advancement was very slow because he didn't know how much venom was needed to kill the strange worms. If the dosage was too high, it might poison Lu Ning to death. He couldn't be too rough. Thankfully, Zhou had personally experienced the toxicity in-game and knew the approximate dosage needed to be fatal. Although it was his own standard, Lu Ning was at the epic stage, so her body shouldn't be too weak. As the venom entered Lu Ning's body bit by bit, Zhou carefully observed the reactions in her body to see if the strange worms would react to the venom. If they struggled too much, they might damage Lu Ning's body. When that happened, Lu Ning's body would be riddled with holes. It would be useless even if the worms were poisoned to death. However, at Lu Ning's level, he could only take the risk. If he didn't get rid of the worms, she would die sooner or later. Thankfully, the worrisome situation didn't happen. After the venom was injected into Lu Ning's body, her body convulsed violently due to the pain. However, this didn't wake her up. Zhao Xian and company looked at Lu Ning worriedly, but Zhou continued pushing the venom with a deadpan expression. However, he carefully controlled the amount of venom. It looked like Lu Ning was in pain, but it was only the effects of the venom on her body. It wasn't the work of the strange worms. The venom flowed along her blood and fused with it, flowing throughout her body. It was very painful, but it was very effective. The strange worms that were attached to her blood vessels quickly stopped squirming after absorbing the blood or simply being corroded by the venom. Before long, the worms in Lu Ning's body were killed, but this didn't ease Zhou Wen's brows. This was because after the worms died, their corpses remained in Lu Ning's body. This would block her blood vessels, causing her body to suffer from problems. If he couldn't remove the blood thread worms, Lu Ning might not be able to escape death. It could be seen from her unconscious state that her body hadn't fully recovered. However, to extract the blood thread worms from so many tiny blood vessels, and there are so many organs with blood thread worms in them, even the best doctor in the world won't be able to cut open the blood vessels and remove the worms, right? As though sensing Zhou Wen's thoughts, Dr. Darkness transmitted a strong thought, as though telling Zhou Wen that he could do it. This left Zhou Wen slightly alarmed. Although every companion beast had its own will, most companion beasts had muddled consciousnesses. Up to now, Zhou Wen only had 4 companion beasts that could clearly express their consciousness: Truth Listener, Banana Fairy, Ghost Bride, and Dr. Darkness. Dr. Darkness was born on the Dead Man Tree. Perhaps he's indeed extraordinary. Zhou Wen was somewhat worried. If Dr. Darkness really gained complete consciousness in the future, would he turn back into that perverted doctor? Summoning Dr. Darkness, he walked to Lu Ning and held a scalpel with his slender fingers. Zhao Xian and company looked at Dr. Darkness, who was holding the scalpel like a puppet. They knew that it was Zhou Wen's companion beast, but they didn't know why Zhou Wen had summoned it. A companion beast performing surgery on a human? They had never even dreamed of such a thing. Indeed, many companion beasts had powerful healing abilities and could even revive the dead, but that was a manifestation of dimensional powers. As for surgery, it was a skill that was completely different from pure strength. In the next second, Dr. Darkness completely subverted their understanding of companion beasts. The scalpel in Dr. Darkness's hand flashed as he sliced through almost all the blood vessels on Lu Ning's body. Then, a needle appeared in his hand as he pushed the poison into Lu Ning's blood vessels. The entire process was so smooth that it made one's hair stand on end. If it wasn't for the lack of scalpels and various equipment, they would even feel like they were watching the most outstanding doctor perform surgery. As the poison was pushed in, Lu Ning's body trembled violently once again. Then, blood slowly flowed out from the cut blood vessels. At the same time, the strange hair-like worms flowed out. What the hell is this? Zhao Xian and company jumped in fright when they saw the strange worms. They couldn't help but cry out. After Dr. Darkness was done, he returned to Zhou Wen's side. Zhou Wen immediately felt depressed as he thought, "Don't tell me you're done, just like that? If she continues to bleed like this, even though the worms will come out, Lu Ning will still die if she loses too much blood. I want her alive," Zhou Wen said to Dr. Darkness. Dr. Darkness didn't have the ability to answer. All he did was send a thought to Zhou Wen, as though saying that he was only in charge of extracting the strange worms. It's no wonder he's called Dr. Darkness, even after becoming a companion beast. Zhou Wen had no choice but to say to Zhao Xian, "Use your IV to help Lu Ning. Don't let her die from excessive blood loss." When Zhao Xian heard that, he hurriedly summoned the IV and got it to secrete rejuvenation juice to nourish Lu Ning's injured body. The IV's ability was indeed not bad. Even when the strange worms flowed out of her wounds, Lu Ning didn't die from excessive blood loss. Instead, she woke up. "All right, let's stop the bleeding." Zhou Wen used Dr. Darkness's eyes of penetration to stare at her. Seeing that all the strange worms had flowed out, he immediately got Zhao Xian and company to stop Lu Ning's bleeding. The wounds that Dr. Darkness had cut were very small, and most of them were veins. In the beginning, blood kept flowing out due to the effects of the poison, but as the effects of the poison weakened, the blood basically stopped flowing after all the strange worms flowed out. Zhou Wen couldn't help but marvel at Dr. Darkness's control over the poison. "Lu Ning, how are you feeling? Can you speak?" Zhou Wen asked Lu Ning when he saw her wake up and open her eyes. Lu Ning's eyes lost focus in the beginning, but after a while, she gradually recovered. When she saw Zhou Wen and company clearly, she wore a puzzled look. She struggled to sit up and asked in a hoarse voice, "Why am I here?" "It was young Master Wen who saved you. You might not know this, but you were unconscious when you returned. It was young Master Wen's companion beast that unleashed its might and released the strange worms from your body." As Zhao Xian spoke, he looked at the strange worms that were tangled together like strands of hair on the ground and couldn't help but shiver. Just the thought of so many strange worms burrowing into one's body left one shuddering. When Lu Ning saw the strange worms, her expression changed as though she had finally regained consciousness. Following that, she revealed a look of anger. "Those bastards Lord Alcohol. They weren't here to help Adjutant and save anyone. After we arrived at the underground battlefield, they suddenly attacked and knocked Adjutant enemy down." Chapter 285. Zhou Wen and company were alarmed when they heard that. Lu Yunxian hurriedly asked, "Lu Ning, speak clearly. What happened?" Lu Ning recounted what had happened. They followed the markings left behind by Ouyang Lan and found the entrance to the underground tunnel, and Sheng led them in. However, not long after they entered, the entrance to the tunnel suddenly closed. Then, large amounts of black liquid flowed out from the cracks in the surrounding rocks. When they took a closer look, they realized that it wasn't a liquid at all. Instead, it was a kind of worm that looked like a strand of hair. There were so many of those worms that they couldn't be counted. They were like a tide. As long as one was touched by the worms, they would drill into the body through the pores and quickly make the person unconscious. If there were too many worms drilling into the body, it would be fatal. Since the tunnel couldn't be opened, and they had to rescue Ouyang Lan, and Sheng could only order them to retreat deep underground. After fleeing for a long time, they finally escaped the worm horde and found a strange underground palace. However, just as Sheng gave the order to explore the palace, Lord Alcohol and company suddenly launched a sneak attack on Sheng and Lu Ning. Sheng was caught off guard and was sent flying into an underground vault filled with worms. Although Lu Ning resisted a few times, she was outnumbered and was sent flying as well. Lu Ning only remembered that she fell into the worm horde and fainted. She thought that she was doomed, but she never expected to see Zhou Wen and company when she opened her eyes. Zhou Wen and Lu Yunxian frowned when they heard that. "Don't you know that you came out lying on a strange car?" "What car?" Lu Ning frowned. Seeing that Lu Ning really didn't know, Zhou Wen and Lu Yunxian were puzzled. From what Lu Ning said, it was naturally impossible for Lord Alcohol and company to be merciful and save her. There was something odd about this matter. Lu Ning, if you can still hold on, can you draw a map of the places you passed and the things you encountered? Zhou Wen said to Lu Ning. Sure, but we were constantly fleeing back then. I can only remember the general direction. I definitely can't remember the entire route, but I do remember some special landmarks. Lu Ning took out a pen and paper and wrote some scattered information for Zhou Wen. Have a good rest. We'll think of a way to save them. Zhou Wen took the information and prepared to return to his game. He followed Lu Ning's route. Lu Ning shook her head and didn't say a word. They only had so few people left, so how could they enter to save Ensheng? Furthermore, Ensheng had already fallen into the sea of worms. The chances of him surviving were slim. However, Zhou Wen didn't believe that someone like Ensheng would die so easily. Furthermore, it was very likely that the former principal was inside. Regardless, he had to enter to take a look. After returning to his tent, Zhou Wen switched on the mysterious phone and entered the Zhuolu dungeon, arriving at the entrance of the underground tunnel. The strange car didn't exist in-game. After looking at the information Lu Ning had written, Zhou Wen controlled the blood-colored avatar to enter the tunnel. The tunnel was dark and damp, and the stone steps were covered with moss. Both sides of the tunnel were half man-made stone walls. It could be seen that this was originally an underground cave, but it was slightly man-made. Not long after he entered the tunnel, he heard a bang. He saw that the tunnel entrance was blocked by a stone door, and the tunnel was immediately plunged into darkness. Zhou Wen wasn't used to this darkness. Without Truth Listener's ability, his pure vision became very weak. He couldn't see in the darkness. Thankfully, Zhou Wen still had Dr. Darkness. He got Dr. Darkness to attach himself to him and activated Light of Penetration. Zhou Wen's eyes immediately shot out a beam of light, allowing him to see clearly within 10 meters. With this look, Zhou Wen felt his scalp tingle. He saw many cracks on the stone wall, and countless hair-threaded worms were surging out. Just as Lu Ning had said, they looked like black liquid. Zhou Wen summoned the banana fan and fanned at the surrounding hair-threaded worms. Wherever the wind passed, the worms were immediately blown away and slammed into the mountain wall, turning into shattered ice and dying. Killed legendary creature, blood-threaded worm. Killed legendary creature, blood-threaded worm. Killed legendary creature, blood-threaded worm. With this fanning, the system's notification flooded his screen. Only at the legendary stage? Zhou Wen was somewhat disappointed. He never expected such strange worms to only be at the legendary stage. However, they could actually burrow into the bodies of epic experts and knock them unconscious. This was rather impressive. From the looks of it, the level suppression isn't absolute. The abilities of these blood-threaded worms are rather special, and there are so many of them. It's no wonder even epic experts have to retreat. When Zhou Wen saw the tidal wave of blood-threaded worms surge over again, he didn't waste his primordial energy and ran deep into the underground tunnel. Lu Ning slept for more than 10 hours and used some primordial energy crystals. When she woke up again, she looked much better. Lu Yunxian suddenly asked Lu Ning when he saw her sit down, Lu Ning, if you were to enter the underground tunnel again, would you still dare to do it? Adjutant and is already dead. What's the point of us entering again? Lu Ning sighed and said, and now that I think about it, after we entered the tunnel, we were fleeing for our lives. I didn't realize it back then, but now that I think about it carefully, it seems like we were led away by Lord Alcohol and the others. Lord Alcohol and the others already know about the underground world. They didn't come here to save Madame Lawn, so they must have a motive. No matter what their motive is, I don't believe that Adjutant will die so easily. Furthermore, there's still young Master Wen. He will definitely enter to reinforce Adjutant. However, we don't know much about the situation inside. If possible, I hope you can enter the underground tunnel with us again, Lu Yunxian said as he looked at Lu Ning. Lu Yunxian looked at Lu Ning and said, there were some things that Zhou Wen could choose not to do, but he had to make plans early. Young Master Wen? Are you talking about Zhou Wen? I know he has great potential, but he's only at the legendary stage. In such a terrifying place, Even you and I can't protect ourselves. What can he do? Lu Ning said. Lu Yunxian didn't say anything else as he looked at Lu Ning and asked, "Then, are you willing to enter the underground tunnel again?" Just treat it as doing it for adjutant. And Lu Ning opened her mouth and was about to say something when she suddenly heard a clanging sound coming from the ruins. It sounded like a bell being struck, but it wasn't the sound of metal clashing. It was more like the sound of rocks hitting each other. Zhou also heard the sound and immediately thought of the strange car. Furthermore, from the direction of the sound, it seemed to be coming from the entrance of the underground tunnel. Chapter 286. When Zhou came out, Lu Yunxian and company had already walked out of the tent and were looking in the direction of the ruins. "Young Master One, should we go take a look?" Lu Yunxian asked Zhou. Clearly, he had determined that the strange car was producing the sound. Zhou nodded and said, "It's good to go take a look." He was also very curious about the strange car. He hadn't seen the car in game. Even after entering the underground tunnel, he still didn't see the strange car. Now, Zhou was very curious about where the strange car had come from. Had someone brought it in, or was it something from the underground tunnel? Lu Yunxian followed Zhou into the ruins. Lu Ning, who had yet to recover from her injuries, hesitated for a moment before following them into the ruins. "How did you resolve the wind of space?" Lu Ning rode a giant snow fox and followed behind Zhou and company. She didn't see Zhou and Lu Yunxian use any means to interfere with the wind of space, nor did she see it appear. She couldn't help but feel puzzled. When she entered with Lord Alcohol and company, they had sacrificed quite a number of companion beasts to find a way to interfere with the wind of space. However, they had only found a way to interfere with it. It didn't completely resolve the problem. The wind of space would still appear. Young Master One has already killed the dimensional creature that used the wind of space. There shouldn't be any more wind of space in the near future, Lu Yunxian said. Lu Ning found it unbelievable when she heard that. She looked suspiciously at Zhou, finding it hard to imagine that this youth could do such an unbelievable thing. However, she had no choice but to believe it. She had been in the ruins for quite some time, but she hadn't encountered any wind of space. Zhou didn't say a word as he walked forward without a word. Soon, the three of them arrived in front of the underground tunnel again. Sure enough, the sound came from the strange car. The strange car that was originally parked in the passageway started to move again. The puppet standing on the front of the car was slowly moving the rocker arm. As the rocker arm swung, the strange car seemed to be winding up, making creaking sounds. Every time it swung, there would be a loud clang. The wheels of the strange car were slowly moving, but this time, it wasn't moving forward. Instead, it was retreating as though it was returning to the ruins. "Is this the strange car you were talking about? Did I come out by lying on it?" Lu Ning asked as she looked at the strange vehicle that was slowly moving backward. "Yes," Lu Yunxian said. "You came out on it. You were the only one in the car. What kind of power is driving it?" Lu Ning looked at the puppet on the strange carriage as if she wanted to know if it was a living thing. "Young Master One and I have already checked it. The strange car is a dead object. There are no signs of living creatures on the puppet, but we didn't find anything like fuel. We don't know what principle it uses to push the strange car. We originally thought that it had exhausted its energy, but from the looks of it, that's not the case," Lu Yunxian said. Seeing the strange vehicle slowly reverse and about to enter the underground tunnel, Zhou looked at Lu Ning and asked, "Lu Ning, you said that you were sent out by the strange vehicle while unconscious. Is it possible that you fell into the strange vehicle?" "I really don't know. I was struck down by Lord Alcohol and the others and fell into the blood threadworm horde. I quickly lost consciousness, so I really don't know what happened next." Lu Ning shook her head. Zhou looked at the strange vehicle that was about to retreat into the tunnel and frowned in thought. In-game, he had relied on the information Lu Ning had given him to venture deep into the underground world. However, as Lu Ning's information only had some landmarks and no detailed directions or path markings, Zhou could only find his way inside. However, the underground world was just too big. He had been wandering around for more than 10 hours, but he hadn't found the palace that Lu Ning had mentioned. Zhou didn't believe that Lu Ning was lying to him. This was because the paths inside were complicated, as though they had been artificially adjusted. After walking around for a long time, he realized that there were many times when he would return to a spot he had been to before. This spot wasn't fixed, but Zhou hadn't been able to walk out of it after walking for more than 10 hours in-game. I remember you saying that the underground chasm you fell into is in the palace, right? Zhou asked Lu Ning. That's right. Just as we entered the palace, we were ambushed by Lord Alcohol and the others and were knocked down, Lu Ning said. If we deduce that you fell into this strange vehicle and triggered a certain mechanism, causing the strange vehicle to bring you out, will I be able to return to the chasm you fell from if I were to sit in the strange vehicle? Zhou asked again. I really don't know, but it's too dangerous, Lu Ning said with a bitter smile. That's right. It's too dangerous, Lu Yunxian said. Although it's dangerous, this might be the best method. Lu Ning also said that she was led away by Lord Alcohol and the others. They know the way, but we don't. If we head down directly, I'm afraid it will be very difficult for us to find the palace. Lu Ning came out in the strange vehicle. Since she was able to come out unscathed, it means that the strange vehicle should be safe. If we enter in the strange vehicle, we might be able to reach the palace directly, Zhou said. Of course, there was something Zhou didn't say. He had played the game for more than 10 hours and had a rather good understanding of the underground world. He had ways to deal with the few-dimensional creatures inside. Now, the most troublesome thing was that he couldn't walk out of the maze-like path. The strange vehicle in front of him seemed to be a ray of hope. But that's just speculation. What if the strange vehicle takes us to a more dangerous place? Lu Yinxian said, We know nothing about it to begin with. Any place inside is dangerous for us. Zhou saw that half of the strange vehicle had entered the tunnel. Without any hesitation, he quickly walked over and jumped into the back of the vehicle. Then he said to Lu Yunxian and Lu Ning, Wait for me at the camp. I'll go in and take a look. Although Zhou could continue waiting and find a way out in-game, he didn't know how long it would take. Perhaps a day or two, 7 or 8 days, or even a month or two. He could wait, but he was afraid that the former principal and company wouldn't be able to wait any longer. Zhou wasn't worried that he would be trapped inside. With his understanding of the underground world, he knew that there were a few relatively safe places inside. Furthermore, he had enough daily necessities in the chaos space. Even if he was trapped for a year or so, his life wouldn't be in danger. Furthermore, he had his phone. After entering the tunnel, he got the blood-colored avatar to follow the strange vehicle's route. If an accident really happened, he could continue exploring the game as long as he found a safe place. Chapter 287. Young Master One, I'll go with you. Lu Yunxian rushed over in a few steps and jumped onto the strange vehicle. Lu Ning was still somewhat hesitant, but when she saw that the strange vehicle had already tilted and was about to slide into the underground tunnel, she gritted her teeth and got the snow fox to carry her towards the strange vehicle. At the instant the strange vehicle slid down, Lu Ning also jumped onto it. Creak, creak, creak. The strange vehicle entered the tunnel, and like a roller coaster, it suddenly sped up and plunged deep underground. Zhou and company hurriedly grabbed onto the edge of the carriage and saw the scenery on both sides rapidly recede. The strange vehicle charged forward, shuttling through the crisscrossing caves, but it seemed to have a fixed trajectory. The puppet was crazily pushing its rocker arms, its body moving up and down as fast as a sewing machine at full speed. Hold on tight. Don't get flung out. The strange vehicle's speed was just too fast. Furthermore, it didn't slow down when it made a turn. It made Zhou and company nearly fly out due to the centrifugal force. The three of them desperately grabbed onto the edge of the carriage as their bodies floated up. When the bend was over, they fell heavily into the carriage. However, the next bend came again. Zhou and Lu Yunxian were fine, but Lu Ning had yet to recover. Such a jolt made her expression turn ugly. Thankfully, Lu Ning wasn't a pampered person. As a freelance hunter, She had traversed the mountains and rivers of the Federation. She had hunted countless dimensional creatures and experienced countless battles of all sizes. She had encountered situations that were more difficult than this one, so this wasn't enough to make her panic. After a while, the slope of the cave slowed down, and the speed of the strange vehicle also slowed down a lot. The trio could finally sit stably in the back of the truck without being swung around. Lu Yunxian held onto the edge of the carriage and stood up. He looked out and saw stone walls and cave forks. Looking around, he soon realized that he couldn't even tell which direction he was in. Young Master One, I can't even tell which direction I'm going. Lu Yunxian looked at Zhou Wen helplessly. Lu Ning, look around. Do you have any impression of this place? Zhou Wen asked Lu Ning. He knew the direction and even memorized the route of the strange vehicle. His focused talent allowed him to memorize everything under such harsh conditions. This was not something an ordinary person could do. However, Zhou Wen didn't say it out loud and instead asked Lu Ning. Lu Ning's face was pale. She stood up with the help of the card and looked around. After a while, she said, "There are no obvious landmarks here. It's just like any other cave. I don't know if I've been here before." Zhou Wen thought about it and realized that it made sense. There was indeed nothing special about this place. There were stone walls and forks everywhere. Furthermore, the visibility wasn't good. With the help of the stone lamp in front of the car, he could only see about 10 meters away. Suddenly, their eyes lit up. They saw a starry sky appear in the darkness in front of them. In the pitch-black night sky, there were countless stars twinkling. Soon, Zhou Wen and company realized that it wasn't a night sky, but a kind of, or that grew on the dark stone walls. It was similar to mica that shimmered with a mesmerizing light. The strange vehicle drove through the dark cave. Coupled with the scattered oars that resembled stars, it really felt like they were flying in the cosmos. It was so beautiful that it made one's soul feel a lot cleaner. Not good. When we came here previously, we passed by a similar place. Beside those strange glowing oars, there was a strange epic dimensional creature. It looked like a bat, but it didn't have sonic skills. However, its eyes could shoot out a beam of light. Once hit by that beam of light, one's body would melt like snow. It was extremely terrifying, Lu Ning said. How many did you encounter back then? Zhou Wen asked as he looked at the top of the stone path. We encountered a total of 3, but we didn't encounter them together. Otherwise, there might have been casualties, Lu Ning said. Then you have to be mentally prepared now, Zhou Wen said with an odd expression. Lu Ning and Lu Yunxian couldn't see clearly, but Zhou Wen used Dr. Darkness's light of penetration to see clearly that there were white bat-like dimensional creatures hanging from the top of the cave. It was hard to say how many there were, but Zhou Wen didn't know. Just as Lu Ning was about to ask if he was mentally prepared, she heard the sound of flapping wings. She saw a large swarm of white bats fly down from the top of the cave like a thick layer of white clouds. It was unknown how many bats there were. When Lu Ning saw this, her pale face turned even paler. There was no sign of blood, just the bats that flew overnumbered at least 100. This was only what she saw. She didn't know how many she couldn't see in the darkness. The first time they came, they had gone through a lot of trouble to kill a single white bat. Now that so many bats were rushing over, it could be said that the 3 of them were sentenced to death. Lu Yunxian and Zhou Wen were prepared to fight. Lu Yunxian didn't know how powerful the white bats were, but Zhou Wen knew that they were powerful. However, he wasn't afraid. He had already seen such white bats in game. The light in the white bat's eyes was indeed powerful, but Zhou Wen had a way to deal with it. Seeing a large swarm of bats fly over, Zhou Wen held the banana fan and fanned at the bats. An invisible grand wind swept out, immediately sending the flying white bats flying. Lu Ning summoned the snow fox and was about to fight to the death when she saw Zhou Wen standing in front of the car with a beautiful fan in his hand. He gently fanned the cloud-like white bats. The white bats that filled the sky seemed to have been swept away by an invisible force. They flew out and crashed into the stone ceiling. Their bodies were smashed into pieces and fell down one by one. smashing into the surrounding stone walls and stone steps with clanking sounds. Lu Ning looked at Zhou Wen in a daze, unable to believe her eyes. The might of the fan had killed nearly 100 white bats. It was just too shocking. It made her believe that the fan had come from a student at the legendary stage like Zhou Wen. She could accept it if the fan was done by a top epic expert, but Zhou Wen, a legendary, was able to produce such might. It made her feel like she was dreaming. However, Zhou Wen didn't find it strange. The banana fan was a top-notch epic to begin with. Furthermore, the white bats had their weaknesses. They were extremely fast, making it difficult for the typical epic to injure them. Coupled with the terrifying beam in their eyes, they were indeed very difficult to deal with. However, the white bat's weakness was their weak constitution. Among epic creatures, they were probably at the bottom. With a constitution of about 20 points, they weren't much stronger than a legendary. They couldn't withstand the Grand Yin Wind, nor could they dodge the large-scale Grand Yin Wind's attacks. It could be said that the banana fan was their nemesis. Chapter 288. Zhou Wen couldn't help but feel regretful when he saw a large number of white bat corpses land on the tunnel behind him. There were even some crystals among them. The strange vehicle kept advancing. He didn't know what would happen if he left the strange vehicle, so it wasn't appropriate for him to pick up the crystals. All he could do was watch the strange vehicle gradually move away from them. A large number of bats were killed, but there were still a large number of white bats charging forward fearlessly. Looking at the white shadows flying above him made his scalp tingle. Zhou Wen had just used the Grand Yin Wind and hadn't recovered his primordial energy when he saw a large number of white bats charge down. His expression changed slightly as he gripped his bamboo blade tightly and prepared to engage the white bats in close combat. Lu Yunxian and Lu Ning also summoned their companion beasts in preparation for battle. The carriage was too small, so they could only summon companion beasts in their companion form to transform into armor and weapons to assist them in battle. Seeing the large number of white bats rush down, Zhou Wen was about to draw his saber when he heard a buzzing sound. The white bats that filled the sky retreated. None of the white bats continued charging down as they circled the top of the cave. Zhou Wen and company were taken aback as they looked in the direction of the carriage. They saw that the puppet was holding a strange musical instrument at some point in time. The musical instrument was likely made of stone. It looked flat and had a few holes on it. It was extremely crude, but just as the white bat was about to rush down, the puppet placed the stone instrument in front of its face. Its face was just a piece of wood without any facial features. It was unknown how it blew, but the hole in the stone made a humming sound. The moment the sound was heard, the white bats that charged down immediately retreated. They circled in the sky for a long time, not daring to charge down again. The strange vehicle passed through the bat swarm, but it wasn't attacked by the bat swarm again. It proceeded safely. Young Master One, don't tell me that puppet is alive. Lu Yunxian looked at the puppet in shock. He originally imagined that it was a machine-like dead object, but who knew that it would have such an anomaly? Zhou Wen was also looking at the puppet. The puppet was standing on the pedal of the carriage and was no longer pushing the rocker arm. However, the strange vehicle was still moving forward at a constant speed. The rocker arm was also spinning on its own. The puppet stood at the front of the carriage with the stone instrument in its hand. It looked up as though it was looking into the distance, but it didn't have any facial features. It didn't even have eyes, so how could it look? It was incomparably strange. Zhou Wen found it odd, but since it was beneficial to them, Zhou Wen had no intention of attacking the puppet. He was only somewhat worried about where the strange vehicle would take them. The scene in front of them suddenly opened up as the white bats that filled the sky dispersed. The trio's gazes passed through the scattered white bats and saw a blue sky. Unlike the cave from before, this place was actually a vast and boundless space. One couldn't see the end of this space at a glance. In the distance, one could even see the sea and islands, and above them was a blue sky. However, the blue sky was a little too blue, like a sapphire. Zhou Wen looked carefully and realized that it was really a sapphire. An unimaginably huge sapphire that occupied the entire sky formed the sky of this underground space. There was no sun or stars. The sapphire itself emitted a faint blue light, illuminating the entire underground space. At the same time, everything in the underground space was covered in a layer of light blue. In the next second, the strange vehicle landed on the blue sea. Zhou didn't know if it was an ocean, but he couldn't see the end of it. At a glance, all he saw was dark blue seawater. The strange vehicle could actually drive on the surface of the sea. Its stone wheels spun on the surface of the sea as though it was walking on flat ground. It sped across the surface of the sea, leaving behind 2 white waves. "What's that down there?" Lu Yunxian said as he pointed at the seawater beside him in horror. Zhou Wen and Lu Ning looked at the sea and saw a huge shadow beneath them. It was as though a behemoth was swimming beneath the strange vehicle. All they could see was a huge shadow that they couldn't see its head or tail, and the shadow was gradually growing larger. Splash! The seawater spewed into the sky like a volcanic eruption, reaching at least hundreds of feet high. Huge waves swept up in all directions. The seawater struck the strange vehicle, but didn't budge at all. However, a large amount of seawater poured into the back of the vehicle, drenching the 3 of them. However, Zhou Wen and company weren't in the mood to care about the seawater on their bodies. Their 6 eyes widened as they stared at the sea beside the vehicle. They saw a huge black creature that looked like it was carved out of an obsidian. Half of its body extended out of the seawater. Its body was perfect and gorgeous, and its obsidian-like scales shimmered. Every inch of its body seemed to be exquisitely carved. Such a huge body couldn't be seen even with a magnifying glass. The massive body that was like a small mountain gave off an exquisite and dignified feeling. Dragon. That's a dragon. A dragon carved out of an obsidian. Lu Yunxian stammered as he pointed at the creature that had half its body extended out of the sea. Zhou Wen's expression didn't look too good either. The development of the situation seemed to have exceeded his expectations. Regardless of whether the terrifying creature in the sea was a real dragon or not, just the aura it emitted was enough to tell how terrifying an existence it was. It might even not be weaker than the white dragon in Dragon's Well. Boom, boom. A series of waves sounded as the seawater around the strange vehicle churned. Large amounts of seawater surged over, causing Zhou Wen and company to stagger. However, their gazes weren't on the vehicle. Outside the strange vehicle, black dragon heads tore through the waves. 1, 2, 3. When Zhou Wen saw the 9th black dragon extend its head out of the sea, he felt a little numb. Roar! The 9 creatures carved out of obsidian roared at the strange vehicle in unison. The sound waves instantly surged towards the strange vehicle. Even the seawater was struck by the sound waves, forming huge waves that surged towards the tiny, strange vehicle from all directions. "We're doomed." Lu Yunqian's expression changed drastically. With such a terrifying creature and such a terrifying sound wave, it was likely that they wouldn't be able to escape today. Zhou Wen gripped the banana fan tightly, prepared to fight to the death. Even though he knew that he wasn't its match, he couldn't just sit back and wait for death. Woo! However, the strange sound of stone instrument sounded in front of the vehicle again. With the humming sound, the surrounding sound waves and huge waves dissipated at the same time, preventing them from approaching the strange vehicle. The 9 black dragons stared at the strange vehicle covetously, but none of them pounced forward. All they did was watch the strange vehicle slowly drive to the other side of the sea. Zhou Wen and company's hearts raced. After the strange vehicle distanced itself from the 9 black dragons, Zhou Wen turned his head to take another look. He saw the 9 obsidian-like dragons roaring at the sky as though they were venting the anger in their hearts. And under the sea, Zhou Wen realized that the lower half of their bodies were connected. It was like a black mountain sinking into the sea. Only then did he realize that it wasn't 9 dragons, but a monster with 9 dragon heads. Chapter 289. As the strange vehicle sped across the sea, the puppet continued standing in front of the vehicle, staring into the distance, motionless like a statue. Is this how I came back? Lu Ning's face was filled with questions. She couldn't imagine what she had experienced while she was unconscious. Zhou Wen leaned against the back of the vehicle, gaming on his phone. He wanted to see if he could control the blood-colored avatar to walk the same path. Although he now knew that it was probably useless for the blood-colored avatar to walk over. Even if he could pass through the White Bat Cave, it was impossible for him to pass through the underground sea protected by the nine-headed dragon. However, there was nothing to do in the vehicle. Lu Ning was resting while Lu Yunxian was observing the situation ahead. Since Zhou Wen had nothing to do, he took out his phone and began grinding. Zhou Wen sat at the back with only the sea behind him. Lu Yunxian and Lu Ning couldn't see what he was playing. He controlled the blood-colored avatar to follow the strange vehicle's path at full speed. Soon, a large swath of blood threadworms surrounded him. Zhou Wen didn't have the patience to bother with them as he ran at full speed. When his primordial energy was full, he would strike at the blood threadworms. After killing a large number of blood threadworms, quite a number of crystals dropped. However, legendary crystals were useless to Zhou Wen. Instead, Zhou Wen picked up the eggs that dropped from the blood threadworms and hatched them. The blood threadworms themselves weren't strong, but if there were a large number of them, it would be different. Even an epic expert would have no choice but to retreat. Zhou Wen hatched quite a number of blood threadworms and planned on seeing if they were useful. If they were useful, he could keep them. If they weren't, he could feed them to his pets as food. Where can I find a speed-type mount? I have to rely on my 2 legs to run every time. It expends my primordial energy, but I can't do anything else. Zhou Wen used his primordial energy skill to increase his speed. After running for a while, he needed to recover his primordial energy. Furthermore, it was quite tiring. Only then did he realize that he needed a mount. To be called a genius among geniuses by the former principal, Zhou Wen naturally had something extraordinary about him. His divergent thinking and memory far exceeded the average person's. He memorized the complicated route that the strange vehicle took at such a high speed, and soon he arrived at the White Bat Cave. Looking at the star-like ores in the cave, Zhou Wen suddenly had an idea. He wondered if he could dig out these ores in-game. With this in mind, he gave a try. The ore wasn't difficult to dig. The blood-colored avatar shattered the rock beside the ore and dug out a translucent milky white crystal. Obtained crystal stone. Weight, 21 grams. Crystal purity, 0.12. This crystal is actually something recognized by the game. But what's the use of primordial crystal stones? Don't tell me it's like essence gold that can be used to create weapons that can kill dimensional creatures? Zhou Wen was alarmed. Unfortunately, there was no storage space in the game. Even if he knew that these primordial crystals were useful, he could not take them away. I wonder if there are any companion beasts with storage functions. I have to get one. Otherwise, it would be a pity to see so many things go to waste. Zhou Wen had heard of such a companion beast, but he had never seen it before. He didn't know where it would drop. Not long after entering the Bat Cave, Zhou Wen didn't wait for the white bats to attack. Instead, he first attracted their attention, attracting the nearby white bats. There are no strange vehicles in-game. If he were to fall into the swarm of bats, he would definitely be surrounded and die. Therefore, Zhou Wen planned on clearing the way and killing the white bats first before dropping some items. If he was lucky, he might even be able to get a white bat to use as a mount. This fellow's flying speed was extremely fast, making it a rare flying pet. Zhou Wen was very interested in obtaining one. The only worry was that the epic companion egg wouldn't be able to hatch completely. Zhou Wen lured a group of white bats over before striking out with his fan. Immediately, he sent the swarm of white bats flying. Their bodies turned into ice sculptures in midair and shattered when they slammed into the stone wall. Zhou Wen was delighted to see dozens of white bats killed with a single fan. Quite a number of crystals dropped. If only all epic creatures were as easy to kill as white bats, Zhou Wen thought greedily. Unfortunately, it wasn't easy to find an epic creature with such a weak physique. Furthermore, it was rare for epic creatures to appear in large groups. In some small dimensional zones, epic creatures typically appeared alone. It was rare to see them in super dungeons like Shualu. After scanning the battlefield, he realized that the crystals dropped by the white bats were basically speed crystals. Epic crystals were very useful, but it was useless for Zhou when to absorb them. He couldn't take them away either. Looking at the crystals on the ground, Zhou felt his heart ache as though he had lost the jackpot. Storage Companion Beast. I have to get a Storage Companion Beast, Zhou shouted inwardly. As he lured monsters and killed them, Zhou killed countless white bats. Although he didn't count them in detail, there were at least 400 to 500 of them. The crystals that dropped were all basic stat crystals. Ding! A unique sound of something dropping sounded. Zhou looked at the pile of white bat corpses, and his eyes lit up. Among the crystals, one of them shimmered with a blue glow. The words on it were also different. Poison 13. Zhou was overjoyed as he hurriedly got the blood-colored avatar to pick up the poison crystal. After absorbing it, his poison stat reached 13 points. The poison stat allowed Zhou to have good poison resistance. Furthermore, some special epic primordial energy skills had special stat requirements. Zhou thought to himself that if he could obtain a primordial energy skill with poison in the future, the poison stat would definitely come in handy. Seeing that the white bats could drop poison crystals, Zhou's mind was stirred. He continued charging forward and constantly lured monsters to kill large numbers of white bats. When he was halfway to the bat cave, Zhou lured a group of white bats over. With a flap of his fan, he immediately smacked a large number of bats to death. However, one of the bats phased and vanished as though it had teleported. When it appeared again, it had crossed the Grand Wind and arrived in front of the blood-colored avatar. Only then did Zhou realize that the white bat was somewhat different. It was larger and different from the paleness of the typical white bat. This white bat looked like it was carved from white jade, and its eyes were like two sparkling diamonds. In the next second, the white jade bat's eyes shot out a beam that shot straight at the blood-colored avatar's body. Zhou hurriedly used ghost steps to dodge the white jade bat's attack and began fighting it. Chapter 290. The white bat's speed was surprisingly fast to begin with, and this white jade bat was ridiculously fast. It wasn't inferior to the Ghost King. Furthermore, it had a skill similar to ghost steps. Furthermore, Zhou realized that it wasn't purely an increase in speed. This was because the white jade bat could use that skill to pass through the Grand Wind without suffering any damage. Could it be that this white jade bat knows true spatial transference? Or is it the legendary teleportation? Zhou was alarmed as he constantly controlled the blood-colored avatar to circle around the white jade bat. Dr. Darkness and Ghost Bride also helped from the side, but the white jade bat was too fast. They failed to injure it. Suddenly, Zhou's heart stirred as he saw the white jade bat teleport over. After calculating the location, he suddenly raised his palm as a saber and slashed out with the demonic astral wheel. The blood-red wheel of light spun violently as it sliced at the white jade bat's body. The white jade bat flapped its wings and easily dodged the demonic astral wheel's attack. However, when it continued charging at Zhou, there was a puff. The demonic astral wheel flew back at an even faster speed than before as it slashed at the white jade bat's back. With Zhou's primordial energy, it wasn't enough to seriously injure an epic creature with the demonic astral wheel. However, the white jade bat was an epic companion beast with fast speed and weak physique. When the demonic astral wheel slashed at its back, the spinning blade of light immediately tore open a long gash on its back. Blood splattered out. The white jade bat's body deviated from its trajectory after suffering this unexpected attack, causing it to lose control for a moment. Dr. Darkness stabbed out with the scalpel in his hand. The hand-blade technique of the life soul almost overlapped with his scalpel as it stabbed into the white jade bat's chest, fixing it in midair. Zhou didn't hesitate as he made Banana Fairy return to her true body. Banana Fairy puffed up her cheeks, and her cheeks, which had some baby fat to begin with, puffed up as she blew at the white jade bat. The white jade bat was immobilized by the scalpel and was sent flying by the Grandine wind. Its body quickly turned into an ice sculpture in midair. After slamming into the wall, it shattered. Ding! Zhou heard a special sound of something dropping. He hurriedly looked over and saw a milky white egg on the ground. Zhou was immediately overjoyed. I really got whatever I wanted. I'm really lucky today. However, on second thought, Zhou felt somewhat uneasy. He didn't know if he could hatch a complete epic companion egg. Regardless, Zhou got the blood-colored avatar to pick up the companion egg and check its stats. White Shadow of Poison, Epic, Life Providence, Bone Corrosion Life Soul, Shadow of Darkness Strength, 27 Speed, 40 Constitution, 24 Essence Energy, 32 Primordial Energy Skill, Flash, Poison Beam, Poison Claw Companion Form, Arm Wings. After seeing the White Shadow of Poison stats, Zhou finally knew why it could pass through the Grandine wind. It couldn't teleport, but its Shadow of Darkness Life Soul could temporarily turn it into a shadow state. No matter how strong the wind was, it couldn't blow the shadow away. In its shadow state, the White Shadow of Poison was practically invincible. However, the White Shadow of Poison could only enter a shadow state for a short period of time. Only with the addition of the movement speed skill, Flash, did it look like he had teleported. Zhou had a general idea of its 3 skills, but the White Shadow of Poison's companion form left him somewhat puzzled. Many flying-type companion beasts had wings as companion forms, and a large portion of them had wings. However, this was the first time Zhou had heard of arm wings. When he looked at the White Shadow of Poison's information, especially its companion form, he saw a pair of white bat wings appear on the phone screen. However, they were different from ordinary wings. Above the pair of wings wasn't an ordinary skeleton, but a bat's claws. The arm wings could be considered wings, but they could also be considered a pair of arms. It was indeed very strange. Zhou carefully looked at the White Shadow of Poison's wings and realized that they were indeed very ordinary. However, they were surprisingly useful. They could be used as wings, allowing it to fly faster. They could also be used as a pair of hands, making them rather agile. In combat, they could be used to launch unexpected attacks. This is really good stuff. I just don't know if it can be fully hatched. Zhou really couldn't bear to use such a high-level companion egg as food. He gritted his teeth and prepared to hatch it. However, Zhou didn't blindly hatch it. He first held the companion egg and grinded the white bats for a while. After obtaining a few primordial energy crystals, he picked them up and placed them beside the blood-colored avatar. Then he got the blood-colored avatar to sit on the primordial energy crystals. With 2 primordial energy crystals in hand, he chose to hatch it. In an instant, Zhou felt the primordial energy in his body being drained. His Tao body's primordial energy recovery ability couldn't recover in time. At that moment, the 2 primordial energy crystals in the blood-colored avatar's hand came into effect. They frantically injected primordial energy into the blood-colored avatar's body. The primordial energy crystal under his, but also injected quite a bit of primordial energy, but it wasn't as fast as the primordial energy crystal in his hand. Although he had the Tao body and primordial energy crystal's dual recovery, hatching a companion egg required too much primordial energy in a short period of time. He still couldn't keep up with the supply, making Zhou feel the pain of having his flesh and blood sucked dry. After enduring for more than 20 seconds, just as Zhou thought that the blood-colored avatar was about to explode from the absorption, the companion egg finally transformed into a white beam of light and fused into the blood-colored avatar's body. At the same time, a white bat tattoo appeared on Zhou's back. Clearly, the hatching had been successful. It's done. Zhou was overjoyed as he hurriedly looked at the White Shadow of Poison stats. It was the same as before, still at the epic stage. It hadn't dropped in level, and its stats were identical to before. They hadn't decreased at all. Zhou eagerly summoned the white shadow of poison and sat on its back. He rode it deep into the bat cave, and indeed, his speed was much faster. With the help of the white shadow of poison, Zhou grinding speed became even faster. Along the way, he obtained another poison crystal and primordial energy crystal. The poison crystal only had 9 points, so it was useless for Zhou, who had 13 poison stat points. However, Zhou liked the flash primordial energy skill crystal very much. He directly absorbed it and comprehended rank 6 flash. This was a flying skill that required wings to be used. It could greatly increase one's flight speed. With the white shadow of poison on him, Zhou was very adept at using it. If he wasn't in a rush to scout ahead, Zhou really wanted to grind here for a few months to get more good stuff. After passing through the bat cave, Zhou finally saw the boundless underground sea. He couldn't help but look deep into the sea as he explored the 9-headed dragon's ruins. Chapter 291. Zhou summoned White Shadow of Poison and made it fly as high as possible. He flew close to the sapphire sky, hoping to avoid the 9-headed dragon's eyes and ears and successfully traverse the underground sea. Zhou kept staring at the sea and didn't notice the terrifying shadow. Suddenly, a blue light flashed on the game screen before the entire screen went black. The blood-colored avatar had died for some unknown reason. What was that? Zhou frowned as he looked at his phone, but unfortunately, he didn't agree. He only knew that it wasn't a 9-headed dragon, but something from the sapphire sky. Thankfully, we came in a strange vehicle. Otherwise, it would be extremely difficult to cross the underground sea. Just as Zhou was about to restart the game, he heard Lu Yunxian, who had been in charge of watching, shout, "There's land ahead." Zhou and Lu Ning stood up and saw the direction the strange vehicle was heading in. Indeed, there was a silver beach. The sand there was smoother than any sand Zhou had ever seen. It was like snow. The strange vehicle stepped onto the beach, leaving 2 deep grooves in the sand as it continued forward. Just as they crossed the sea, a white desert appeared in front of them. It was an endless expanse of snow-like sand. Zhou originally imagined that the strange vehicle would continue running for a while, just like in the underground sea. It would take at least an hour or 2. However, just as Zhou sat down and was about to take out his phone to continue grinding, he heard Lu Yunxian's voice. "Young Master One, look. What's that?" Zhou, whose but hadn't warmed up, had no choice but to get up again and look deep into the desert. From afar, he saw something that looked like a flag hanging on the sand. The reason why it looked like a flag was because the flagpole of that thing was crooked, like a big snake that was not straight standing on the sand. There was a piece of animal skin or something else hanging on the top of the flag. It was tattered and black, and its shape was similar to a pair of trousers that had not been washed for hundreds of years. Zhou focused his gaze and vaguely saw a pattern on the tattered underpants. However, without truth listener, his vision was clearly inferior to Lu Yunxian and Lu Ning. Lu Ning's expression changed slightly as she said in a strange voice, "I think I've seen the pattern on the flag in the stone palace that Lord Alcohol brought me to." "What pattern? Are you sure you saw correctly?" Zhou asked. Lu Ning looked at it for a while. When the car got closer, she said, "There's no mistake. It's that pattern. A triangular anchor with a long-haired woman's profile drawn on it. Because the pattern was too strange, I only took a few glances at it, but it left a deep impression on me." An anchor with a woman's side profile? Zhou was alarmed. He had seen such things before, but he never expected them to exist in such a place. Yes, although I don't know who invented the anchor or who invented it, but according to some discoveries in history, this thing couldn't have appeared too early. At the very least, there had to be a big ship first, and then there was the anchor. Back in the Zhuolu myth, I didn't hear of any large ships. The anchor symbol appearing there naturally left a deep impression, Lu Ning added. Could that pattern have been carved after someone entered? Lu Yinxian pondered. I thought so too, but the pattern was specially carved on a stone monument. Furthermore, it was placed on a stone table. It looks like it has experienced the baptism of thousands of years. It's almost blurry and can't be seen clearly. It doesn't look like it was carved recently. And on careful thought, it hasn't even been 100 years since the dimensional storms began. The Zhuolu battlefield only appeared in recent years. Who could bring the stone monument in so early? Furthermore, it has to be the same architectural style as the stone temple. The materials have to be the same, and the age has to be the same. Isn't that a little too difficult? Lu Ning said, "It's indeed a little too difficult." Zhou Wen nodded slightly, but his gaze was fixed on the tattered underwear that was swaying in the air. At that moment, he saw it clearly. It was likely a piece of animal skin, but it had been severely torn. However, the anchor symbol on the flag was still intact. Apart from the size difference, the anchor symbol was identical to the woman's profile. What's the meaning of this woman's anchor symbol? If this pattern already existed in ancient times, then who is its owner? Is it the woman on the anchor? Zhou Wen guessed inwardly, but he didn't have an answer. The crooked flagpole wasn't a snake, but a black, ancient vine. That was why it looked crooked. What's sitting under the flag? Lu Yunxian said as he stared at the bottom of the vine flag. Zhou Wen could only see a grayish-black shadow. It was as though someone was sitting there with a cloak draped over them. When a strange vehicle got a little closer to the vine flag, Zhou Wen realized that it wasn't a cloak. It was just a strange beast robe made of beast hide. It looked like a cloak because it covered his head. As for the creature inside the beast's skin, it was unknown what it was. Right now, only its bones were left. Each and every one of those bones was sparkling and translucent like jade, giving off a flawless feeling. It was a stark contrast to the coarse beast skin. Creak. When it was less than 10 meters away from the flag, the strange vehicle stopped. The puppet turned around and faced the skeleton in the beast's skin. It bent its back slightly as though it was bowing. Why did it stop just like that? Zhou Wen looked around in puzzlement. He was surrounded by white desert. He didn't see any stone palaces, cliffs, or blood threadworms. No matter how he looked at it, it didn't look like the place Lu Ning had mentioned. Lu Ning wore a look of puzzlement as well. The three of them waited for a while. Seeing that the strange vehicle had no intention of continuing and the puppet had stopped moving, they had no choice but to jump out of the back of the vehicle and size up the skeleton and the vine flag at close range. The tattered vine flag didn't have any words on it. There was only an anchor symbol. It didn't look special at all. This is the Zhuolu battlefield. Do you think this vine flag was the flag of one of the parties in the war back then? Lu Yunxian asked. Lu Ning shook her head slightly. Although there are many versions of myths and legends, they are all different. The Yellow Emperor race's totem is said to be a bear, while others say it's a dragon. The Qiyu race says it's a worm, a cow, or a bird. However, regardless of the version, their totem has something in common. They're basically animals. There has never been a version where it's a dead object, much less something like an anchor. That does make sense. Back then, it should have been a period of nature worship. There shouldn't have been an artificial totem like an anchor. Lu Yunxian also found his thoughts ridiculous. Just as they were studying it, the motionless skeleton that looked like a dead object suddenly stood up. It gave the three of them a fright as they hurriedly retreated and summoned their companion beasts. They stared at the skeleton warily. Chapter 292. Are you willing to become my race's spokesperson in the human world? My race will bestow upon you supreme glory. Eternal glory will illuminate the world and make you an unlucky existence. The skeleton held the flagpole of the rattan flag in one hand and stood tall on the white sand. Although only a skeleton was left, the spirit that looked down on the heavens made people's hearts tremble. It was as if there were millions of soldiers following behind him. As long as he gave the order, they could flatten the entire world. As for the skeleton's eyes, there were two blazing white flames flickering in them. They were like two eyes as it stared straight at Zhou Wen, who was standing between Lu Yunxian and Lu Ning. As the skeleton's voice sounded, Zhou Wen felt a sense of disgust and contempt rise in his body. It was the emotion of the sigh of the king. Lu Yunxian and Lu Ning looked at Zhou Wen and the skeleton in bewilderment, unsure of what was going on. With their knowledge, they had no idea that there was such a thing as a representative. However, They saw a terrifying glow burning on the skeleton's body. It was as though a god had descended into the world. The originally ordinary vine flag also emitted a brilliant glow, especially the flag's surface. It was like a sun that no one could look straight at. Young Master One, I once heard that the 6 heroes also obtained the heritage of powerful creatures to become hero-like existences. Could it be that there's a similar opportunity here? Lu Yunxian said to Zhou Wen. Zhou Wen also knew that there was a high chance that this place was like the holy temple in the Holy Land. It could pass down the bloodline power of a race. However, the Sigh of the King gave him a bad feeling, so Zhou Wen didn't plan on accepting it. What race are you? Zhou Wen wasn't in a hurry to reject it as he asked the skeleton. It wasn't easy for him to see the anchor symbol again. Since it was the symbol of a certain race, Zhou Wen wanted to know from the skeleton which race it belonged to. Your soul tells me that you aren't willing to be my race's representative in the human world. What a pity! What a pity! As the skeleton spoke, the glow on its body converged. The glow on the flag also dimmed. The skeleton slowly sat back on the ground. Just like before, it sat against the vine flag and lowered its head, returning to its lifeless state. Can you not be so straightforward? At least answer a few of my questions? Zhou Wen felt depressed. The answer was clearly in front of him, but he couldn't unravel the mystery. It made Zhou Wen have the urge to agree to the skeleton and know the answer. Dang, dang, dang. As the skeleton returned to silence, the strange car suddenly started to move again. The puppet pushed the rocker arm, causing the strange car to move again. The trio hurriedly jumped onto the strange vehicle. They didn't know where they were, so they could only rely on the strange vehicle to find their way. Lu Yunxian was somewhat worried that the strange vehicle would return to the outside of the ruins. However, the strange vehicle did not retreat and continued driving deep into the desert. The desert wasn't as big as they imagined. In less than half an hour, they had already driven out of the desert and entered the rolling mountains. The underground mountain peaks were not considered high. The highest one was only a few hundred meters tall, almost reaching the sapphire sky above. As the strange vehicle entered the mountainous area, the blood threadworms reappeared, and there were even more of them than in the tunnel. Everywhere, there were rocks that looked like they were dyed with black blood, but in fact, they were crawling with blood threadworms. After the blood threadworms discovered them, they crawled over. However, the puppet didn't even play the stone instrument. The blood threadworms didn't dare approach the strange vehicle. All they did was gather on both sides of the strange vehicle, as though they were spectators sending off the convoy. They made way for the strange vehicle to pass. The mountain terrain became more and more complicated. The strange vehicle even drove into the belly of the mountain. As the terrain changed, Zhou Wen felt that the strange vehicle was still heading down. I seem to have some impression of this place. It seems like we've been here before, but we were walking on the cliff and didn't pay much attention to the situation below. I'm not sure if it's here, Lu Ning said hesitantly as she looked at the stone walls on both sides and the tide of blood threadworms. Just as she said that, Lu Ning's eyes suddenly lit up. She pointed ahead and said, "That's right. It's here. This is the fault valley before entering the palace. That stone beam is the path to the stone palace. On the other side of the stone beam is the stone palace." Zhou Wen and Lu Yunxian looked over, and indeed, they saw a stone beam on the cliff in front of them. The stone beam was made of a different kind of stone from the stone wall beside it. It looked grayish-white in color and was very eye-catching. Its shape was also squarish, and it was obvious that it had been carved by someone. If this strange vehicle doesn't stop after passing the stone beam, should we alight? We have to make a choice now, Lu Yunxian said to Zhou Wen and Lu Ning. If we alight from here, we can directly enter the palace and find the fault where Agitanen fell. Lu Ning clearly agreed to alight. Lu Yunxian looked at Zhou Wen again. Zhou Wen thought for a moment and said, "Finding Sheng is more important. Let's alight here." Since their original goal was the fault in the palace, they could directly reach it from here. There was no need for them to continue taking the vehicle. Seeing that the two of them had agreed to alight, Lu Yunxian nodded slightly. When they arrived at the stone beam, they used flames to open a path and burned the blood threadworms on the nearby mountain wall. Then, the three of them stepped on a mountain wall and quickly reached the stone beam. Indeed, there was a stone hall built against the mountain opposite them. It was as though half a palace was growing on the mountain wall. At a glance, Joan saw the highest point of the palace. On top of a stone roof, there was a stone anchor carving. On the front of the anchor was a woman's side profile. However, the situation in front of him left Joan with no time to carefully size up the anchor stone carving. This was because in front of the stone hall, Lord Alcohol and more than 10 people had summoned all sorts of companion beasts and were ready for battle. They seemed to be staring at something inside the palace's door. As they were motionless and didn't make a sound, Joan and company didn't discover their existence before they arrived. After Joan and company rushed up the stone beam, Lord Alcohol and company immediately looked at Joan and company. Instantly, the atmosphere turned tense. Lord Alcohol, you unscrupulous fellows. You took so many benefits from the overseer, but not only did you betray him, you even tried to harm Adjutant, and aren't you being too ruthless? Lu Ning said coldly as she stared at Lord Alcohol and company. The moment Lu Ning said that, the expressions of Lord Alcohol and the dozen or so people changed drastically. They opened their mouths as though they were saying something, but Joan suspected that there was something wrong with his ears. He didn't hear anything. All he saw was Lord Alcohol and company constantly opening their mouths to speak. Their mouths moved the same way, as though they were constantly repeating 3 words. Don't speak. Joan read their mouths and connected it to the anxious expressions on Lord Alcohol and company's faces. He immediately had an ominous feeling as he hurriedly tugged at Lu Ning, indicating for her not to speak. Lu Ning also realized that something was amiss. She had already shut her mouth, but she suddenly heard a rumbling sound coming from the palace. It sounded like thunder. Chapter 293. The sound grew louder and louder, as though thunder was rapidly approaching from the horizon. Boom! The moment the sound came out of the stone temple, it was like a clap of thunder exploding above everyone's heads. Joan felt his ears buzz as though his head was about to split open. Blood seeped out his eyes, nose, ears, and mouth. He couldn't hear anything for a moment. The others weren't much better than Joan. Some of Lord Alcohol and company had already vomited blood. Even their companion beasts were affected as their expressions changed drastically. Some companion beasts were clearly injured. However, Lord Alcohol and company covered their ears and didn't move. They remained motionless. Joan didn't dare move again when he saw this situation. The sound was too sinister. Just a tremor above his head had nearly knocked him unconscious. Who knew what would happen if he continued speaking? Joan already had the thought of retreating to the other side of the stone beam. The other side didn't seem to be affected. As long as he retreated to the other side of the stone beam and shouted, he could use the terrifying sound to easily finish off Lord Alcohol and company. Lord Alcohol kept staring at Joan and company. When he saw the change in Joan's eyes, he seemed to guess something. He opened his mouth and said something to Joan, but he didn't make sound. Joan carefully identified it for a while and realized that Lord Alcohol had said, "Don't move." The airflow can also cause an echo. When the time comes, we will all die. If we could run, we would have done so long ago. Joan didn't know if what he said was true, but seeing that they didn't seem to have any intention of moving, he guessed that they would have long fled if they could. It's impossible for us to stay here forever, right? Joan mouthed to Lord Alcohol. Wait, in another hour or so, the echo will disappear, Lord Alcohol said. Joan's heart stirred when he heard that. Now that Lord Alcohol and company didn't dare move, they could still maintain peaceful coexistence. However, once the echo's restriction on them disappeared, Joan and company might not be a match for Lord Alcohol and company. Although Joan had the banana fan, Lord Alcohol and company were clearly not weaklings. Even someone like Sheng had been defeated by them. Lord Alcohol and company definitely couldn't be underestimated, especially Lord Alcohol. He had once experienced the dimensional storms and was even in the company of figures like Jing Dao Xian and Zhang Dao Tian. He was definitely not as simple as an old man. If I don't take the opportunity to deal with him now, I'm afraid the three of us will suffer later, Zhou thought. However, the three of them weren't immune to Huiyin's damage either. Dealing with Lord Alcohol and company now seemed to be the same as dealing with themselves. Unfortunately, Truth Listener is still evolving. Otherwise, Truth Listener would be of some use against the Echo. Zhou thought of Truth Listener and glanced at the chaos space. He saw that it was still in the state of stone egg. He didn't know when it would complete its evolution. Other than Truth Listener, is there no other way? Zhou struggled to think of a way to deal with Echo. Banana Fairy definitely couldn't do it. She was an offense-type companion beast and didn't have good defense. Now that she couldn't see the enemy, she couldn't retaliate. Dr. Darkness was even more useless under such circumstances. Without an opponent, he couldn't use his abilities. As he doctor. Without as he. Without he. Zhou thought for a moment. Although Ghost Bride wasn't afraid of the Echo, it wasn't of much help to Zhou's present situation. It was impossible for Ghost Bride to help them resist the Echo, unless the Echo itself is directional. Zhou carefully recalled the details of the Echo explosion and felt that although they were relatively far from the stone temple, they didn't have the advantage. The echoes seemed to get louder the further they went. They didn't seem any different from Lord Alcohol and the others standing in front of the stone temple. Just as Zhou was pondering over it, he saw Lu Yunxian winking at him. He kept opening his mouth to say something, but Zhou didn't notice it as he had been looking at Lord Alcohol and company. Now that he noticed Lu Yunxian, he could quickly tell from his lips that he was saying, "I have a way to resist the Echo." "You can block the Echo?" Zhou also mouthed to communicate with Lu Yunxian, but unfortunately, Lu Yunxian didn't have the ability to read lips. All he did was keep repeating his words. Zhou thought for a moment. Lu Yunxian was a very reliable person. From the looks of it, he wouldn't lie. Zhou hesitated for a moment before attempting to walk towards Lu Yunxian. He wasn't far from Lu Yunxian to begin with, only about 2 to 3 steps away. The moment he took a step forward, he immediately heard rumbling thunder in the stone temple. It erupted almost instantly. Boom! A bolt of lightning exploded, causing Lord Alcohol and company to bleed from their 7 orifices. Even the companion beasts were no exception. As for Zhou and company, they were fine. In front of them was a very strange companion beast. The companion beast looked like a headless pig. Its body was round and oval, and it didn't have a head or tail. It had 4 hooves, making it look very strange. However, such a stupid-looking companion beast actually used a strange energy fluctuation to withstand the terrifying sound wave, preventing the trio from suffering the impact of the sound wave. Zhou's eyes narrowed as he looked at Lord Alcohol and company. Lord Alcohol wasn't in a good state to begin with, so his face turned even paler when he saw this scene. "Young Master One, how about we make a deal?" Lord Alcohol mouthed. "Ow!" Zhou directly said that, immediately causing thunder to rumble in the stone temple. Once again, it transformed into an echo wave that exploded above the stone temple. Bam! Bam! Some companion beasts were knocked to the ground. Lord Alcohol and more than 10 others were bleeding from their 7 orifices. They were slightly weaker and had already collapsed to the ground. These sounds triggered more echoes. Thunder rumbled outside the stone temple, as though Thunder God was enraged. The echoes kept bombarding the area. A few people on Lord Alcohol's side were already bleeding from their 7 orifices. It was unknown if they were dead or alive. The situation on Zhou's side wasn't looking good either. The echoes were too powerful. The strange companion beast's body trembled as though it couldn't hold on any longer. Zhou glanced sideways and saw Lord Alcohol advance instead of retreating. He charged into the stone temple despite the thunderous sound. "Let's enter the stone temple." Zhou's heart stirred as he got Lu Yunxian to control the companion beast and head in the direction of the stone temple. Zhou originally imagined that the sound would be more terrifying closer to the stone temple, But when he arrived outside the stone temple, he realized that the further he was from the stone temple, the louder the sound became. Although the echoes were still terrifying inside the stone temple, they weren't as terrifying as when they were outside. Zhou sized up the stone temple and saw that there were many stone tools inside. Most of them were very crude, and Lord Alcohol was running towards the back door of the stone temple. The terrifying echoes only made him vomit blood and fail to kill him. Chapter 294. Where did Sheng fall from? Zhou asked Lu Ning. In the fault of the rear hall, Lu Ning said. Zhou hurriedly got Lu Yunxian to control his companion beast as the three of them rushed into the rear hall. If the front hall was considered a building, then the rear hall was basically a huge cave. Basically, 80% of it still maintained its original appearance. Only a few places had traces of artificial excavation. On the left side of the cave was a stone drum that emitted thumping sounds. The terrifying sound wave was emitted from the stone drum. However, now that Zhou Wan and company were close to the stone drum, they couldn't sense the might of the echo. The power of the sound wave was only equivalent to a legendary sound wave attack. On the other side of the cave, there was a huge crack that was hundreds of meters long. And at the back of the cave, there was a strange fruit tree. The fruit tree was 20 to 30 meters tall, and its crown was like a huge umbrella. Its leaves were dense, and its entire body was as black as ink. Only the leaves had some tiny white meridians. Between the black leaves were many fruits. However, upon closer inspection, one couldn't help but be alarmed. This was because the fruits looked like babies sitting cross-legged with their eyes closed. It was indescribably strange and terrifying. Furthermore, Zhou looked at the strange tree. No matter how he looked at it, it looked like the dead man tree in the mysterious phone, but there were some minute differences. Lord Alcohol had already run under the tree. He flew up and reached out to pluck the infant-like fruit. Zhou didn't know if it was an illusion, but he saw the fruit move on its own and take the initiative to meet Lord Alcohol's palm before being held in his hand. I originally planned on letting them give it a try, but there's nothing I can do now. Lord Alcohol's eyes were red as he stared at the strange fruit that resembled a jade doll and swallowed it. What's that fruit? Zhou asked Lu Ning. Lu Ning wore a puzzled look as well. When we first came in, there was only the front of the rear hall. There were no stone drums or fruit trees in the back. Without any hesitation, Zhou drew his bamboo blade and slashed at Lord Alcohol, who had swallowed the fruit with the demonic astral wheel. Since he had already become a mortal enemy, he had to kill the enemy with all his might. He couldn't give the enemy any chances. Zhou didn't know what would happen after Lord Alcohol swallowed the fruit. Although he wanted to know, he wasn't willing to wait for the outcome. Lu Ning and Lu Yunxian had the same thoughts. The two forces, one ice and one fire, struck Lord Alcohol together with Zhou's demonic astral wheel. After Lord Alcohol swallowed the fruit, he stood there motionless like a fool. He lowered his head and hunched his body, looking extremely strange. Just as the three forces were about to strike him, Lord Alcohol suddenly raised his head and spread his arms. He leaned back and let out a painful roar. A terrifying force erupted from his body as a powerful shockwave shattered the trio's strength. However, this terrifying force wasn't targeted at the trio. The expressions of Zhou and company immediately turned nasty. Zhou summoned Banana Fairy, who opened her mouth and blew a gust of grand wind at the roaring Lord Alcohol. The cold wind immediately blew Lord Alcohol's body away as he slammed into the stone wall at the back of the cave, leaving a huge crater in it. Lord Alcohol's body twisted as he leaned against the gravel pit on the mountain wall. His body was covered in frost as he closed his eyes and remained motionless. However, the ominous feeling in Zhou's heart intensified. With bamboo blade in hand, he instantly appeared in front of Lord Alcohol with ghost steps and stabbed his chest with transcendent flying immortal. At that critical moment, one of Lord Alcohol's hands suddenly moved. The veins on his hand protruded as purple snakes wrapped around his arm. Furthermore, his arm emitted a strange, blood-colored luster. At such a close distance, Lord Alcohol managed to grab the bamboo blade's lightning-fast blade with one hand. The extremely sharp bamboo blade failed to sever his palm. Lord Alcohol held the bamboo blade, and his palm was cut by the blade. Blood flowed out, but he didn't seem to feel anything. All he did was hold the blade and open his eyes. He slowly stood up from the gravel pit. As he stood up, his body also underwent a huge change. His broken bones automatically healed. His white hair gradually turned black, and his hunched and emaciated figure gradually became tall and majestic. His entire outline, essence, and spirit seemed to be undergoing a miraculous change. Lord Alcohol, who originally looked like an old man, had already become like a middle-aged man after he slowly stood up. There were no signs of aging. It was unimaginable that the Lord Alcohol from before was the same person as he was now. Dr. Darkness silently came to Lord Alcohol's back and stabbed his scalpel at Lord Alcohol's waist. Bam! Without turning his head, Lord Alcohol struck out with his palm, immediately sending Dr. Darkness and his life soul flying. Dr. Darkness slammed into the mountain wall, and all his bones seemed to have been broken. He fell to the ground, twisted, and it was unknown if he could survive. Jing Daoxian didn't lie to me. The fruit of the longevity tree can indeed rejuvenate me. The feeling of youth is really great. Lord Alcohol's face was filled with excitement. As he spoke, he exerted force with his palm, sending Zhou Wen and his saber flying. In midair, Zhou Wen switched to the Godfiend Life Providence. Using the Godfiend Life Providence's powerful air control ability, he dispelled the terrifying force that Lord Alcohol had sent him flying and safely landed on the ground. He wasn't as miserable as Dr. Darkness. What is that fruit? How did it make Lord Alcohol so terrifying? Lu Yunxian said in horror as he looked at the increasingly youthful and majestic Lord Alcohol. I don't know. Zhou Wen's expression didn't look good. Lord Alcohol's aura was too terrifying. Zhou Wen could even vaguely sense an invisible aura rising from his body, like an invisible devil swaying on his body. What worried Zhou Wen the most was that the present Lord Alcohol had reached an unbelievable level of strength. Even Banana Fairy couldn't kill him. The three of them probably didn't have the strength to fight Lord Alcohol. Lord Alcohol had already become like a young man in his 20s. His black hair had grown long and drooped down due to his reverse growth. His muscles looked full of elasticity and strength. It was impossible to tell that he was a white-haired old man just moments ago. Let's go. Zhou Wen called out to Lu Yunxian and Lu Ning before turning to run toward the front hall. Since they weren't his match, staying behind meant death. Chapter 295. Zhou Wen held the banana fan and sent out a gust of Grandine wind. Bam! Lord Alcohol's body was once again blown away as he slammed into the mountain wall. However, this time, he stood up faster than the previous time. His injuries healed even faster. His gaze was like a blade as he stared at the banana fan in Zhou Wen's hand. It's impossible for an epic companion beast to have such powerful wind elemental powers. That's a mythical companion beast. Which race are you representing in the human world? Does that mean you're also a representative? Zhou Wen asked. Pooey, I'm not a lackey. I'm Lord Alcohol. I'm a lord no matter where I go. I'm not anyone's dog. Lord Alcohol stared coldly at Zhou Wen. Forget it. It doesn't matter which race you represent. All of you will die today. With that said, Lord Alcohol's majestic figure took a step forward and arrived in front of Zhou Wen. He grabbed at Zhou Wen's head. Zhou Wen's figure moved as the wings on his back spread out. He flashed like a shadow and dodged Lord Alcohol's grab. Boom! The strength in Lord Alcohol's hand left 5 finger marks that were more than a meter long on the mountain wall more than 100 meters away. It left Zhou Wen alarmed. Lu Yunxian and Lu Ning attacked at the same time. 2 completely different powers, ice and fire, blasted at Lord Alcohol's back. With a wave of his hand, Lord Alcohol shattered Lu Yunxian's flaming tiger and Lu Ning's ice snake. The two of them were sent flying as they vomited blood and crashed into the distance. It was unknown if they were dead or alive. Zhou sighed inwardly. Indeed, I should just stay at home and play games. Why go to the trouble of risking my life? However, there are some things that I have no choice but to do. Seeing Lord Alcohol walk towards him again, Zhou clenched the banana fan in his hand tightly. The only thing that could restrain Lord Alcohol now was the banana fan. However, using the Grandine wind expended too much primordial energy. He couldn't use it constantly. This was a huge weakness. If Zhou advanced further and advanced to the epic stage, he might be able to use his life soul to resolve the problem of primordial energy expenditure. However, he didn't have a good solution now. Lord Alcohol, it looks like I won't be able to escape death today. Before I die, can you tell me what those fruits are? They actually have the magical ability to rejuvenate one's youth? Zhou wanted to stall for time. Lord Alcohol was clearly very excited. He had finally gotten what he had been pursuing for so many years. At that moment, he had a lot of smugness and emotions he wanted to vent. This is a longevity fruit. Its effects aren't as simple as rejuvenation. In ancient times, swallowing this fruit can allow one to ascend and directly transform into an immortal body. Lord Alcohol's face was filled with excitement. I heard you say that the news of the longevity tree was told to you by Jing Daoxian. Zhou asked again. That's right. Jing Daoxian, Zhang Daotan, and I grew up together. However, I don't have a life as good as Zhang Daotian's, nor do I have a shocking talent like Jing Daoxian. My luck isn't as good as theirs, but thankfully I have a better life and have lived long enough, Lord Alcohol said. I met Jing Daoxian a few months ago. Back then, Jing Daoxian had white hair and was an old man who looked even older than you. If the longevity fruit is really that good without any side effects, why doesn't he pluck the fruit himself and become a young man again? Zhou asked. I've naturally thought of this question. I originally wanted to let those fellows do an experiment, but unfortunately, you foiled my plans. However, from the looks of it, Jing Daoxian didn't lie to me. He probably disdains using the longevity fruit, Lord Alcohol said. Lord Alcohol, aren't you being too naive? You've lived to such an old age. Just think about it. Who wouldn't want to stay young forever? Zhou retorted. However, Lord Alcohol sneered and said, it's naturally impossible for anyone else, but Jing Daoxian is different. He's a natural devil. Common sense doesn't exist in him. What others spend their entire lives pursuing is nothing to him. As long as he wants it, he can obtain anything. Seeing that Lord Alcohol seemed to think highly of Jing Daoxian, Zhou deliberately retorted, no matter how powerful Jing Daoxian is, didn't he still lose to the hero king, Zhang Daotian? It's an exaggeration to say that he can obtain anything. Lord Alcohol immediately revealed a look of disdain. Although Zhang Daotian is considered a stunning genius, he's still much inferior to Jing Daoxian. Others believe that Zhang Daotian defeated Jing Daoxian, but they don't know that the only time Zhang Daotian beat Jing Daoxian was when he married Wan Yiqi. What do you mean? Zhou was somewhat curious. He wasn't just trying to stall for time. Back then, Jing Daoxian and Zhang Daotian fell in love with Wan Yiqi, but because Jing Daoxian's personality was extremely domineering and sinister, he did whatever he wanted. He gradually gained the title of a devil, while Zhang Daotian became the hero king. Therefore, Wan Yiqi ultimately chose Zhang Daotian, who represented justice and kindness. Unfortunately, she never expected. At this point, Lord Alcohol sneered. What didn't she expect? Zhou pressed. She didn't expect herself to be a stumbling block to justice, Lord Alcohol said mockingly. On the second day after Wan Yiqi and Zhang Daotian got engaged, Wan Yiqi advanced to the epic stage and obtained a life soul. Do you know what her life soul is called? What's it called? Zhou knew that Lord Alcohol only needed someone to respond to him. Haha, her life soul is actually the Slaughterer Queen. If Wan Yiqi wants to live, she has to kill a person every day to provide for the Slaughterer Queen. Otherwise, the Slaughterer Queen will turn on her master. Furthermore, as time passes, the slaughterer queen becomes stronger and the more lives she needs. Therefore, Wan Ichi passively became the most evil devil in the world. No matter how unwilling she was, she became a stumbling block for justice, the kind of person she didn't like. Can't she kill dimensional creatures? Zhou asked curiously. No, she can only kill. The slaughterer queen only wants human lives. Lord Alcohol said with a sneer. Wan Ichi told Zhang Daotian about her life soul, believing that he could help her. Unfortunately, no one can change the power of a life soul. Wan Ichi still killed someone under the influence of the life soul, and Zhang Daotian chose to let Wan Ichi be punished by the Federation's laws. There's actually such a thing? Why haven't I heard of it? Zhou was somewhat puzzled. Of course you can't see it in the history books. This is because when Wan Ichi was about to be sentenced to death, Jing Daoxian stormed the Federation building and killed until there was a river of blood. Almost no one survived. When Zhang Daotian returned, he saw that the ground was littered with corpses. Only Wan Ichi was standing there without a single scratch on her. On the snow-white wall behind her, there were a few bloody words written in large, bloodied letters. If she lived, the Federation lived. If she died, the Federation would be destroyed. Chapter 296. For the sake of face, the Federation can only say that Zhang Daotian chased Jing Daoxian away. Actually, it's about the same. Jing Daoxian had indeed been severely injured in that battle. If he had really fought Zhang Daotian back then, it was hard to say who would have won. Ever since then, the League has tried all means to take Jing Daoxian's life. All sorts of schemes have been used, but even so, they failed to take Jing Daoxian's life, Lord Alcohol said. Why didn't Jing Daoxian bring Wan Ichi away? You even left her there? Zhou asked curiously. I don't know if others will take Wan Ichi away, but Jing Daoxian is an arrogant fellow. Since Wan Ichi didn't choose him in the past, he definitely won't take Wan Ichi away no matter what happens, Lord Alcohol said indifferently. What a weirdo. Did Zhang Daotian kill Wan Ichi in the end? Zhou had already forgotten that he was stalling for time. He was completely attracted by Lord Alcohol's story and couldn't help but ask, if Jing Daoxian doesn't die, who would dare kill Wan Ichi? At that time, Jing Daoxian really had the ability to annihilate the Federation's parliament. Lord Alcohol glanced at Zhou and said, Don't ask me how Wan Ichi survived. I don't know either. There are so many people in the League, so there will always be a way to resolve the problem of Wan Ichi's life soul. However, ever since then, Wan Ichi hasn't appeared in public. All right, the story is over. You should be on your way. You're about to die, yet you're still so engrossed in listening to the stories of others. You're quite an interesting person. If you weren't a spokesperson, I could spare your life. What a pity, Lord Alcohol said as he walked over to Zhou. Would you believe me if I said that I'm not a spokesperson? Zhou asked. Wouldn't a spokesperson have a mythical companion beast? Lord Alcohol curled his lips and said disdainfully. Zhou naturally knew his situation, but he couldn't think of a good solution. In front of the huge disparity in strength, it was difficult to think of a plan to defy the heavens and change his fate. At the very least, Zhou couldn't think of one now. The only reliable method was probably to pluck a longevity fruit from a tree and eat it like Lord Alcohol. Perhaps he could become as powerful as Lord Alcohol. However, Zhou had a nagging feeling that the longevity fruit was somewhat sinister. Jing Daoxian hadn't eaten it himself, so there might be side effects. Besides, even if Zhou wanted to eat it, Jing Daoxian wasn't blind. How could he give him such a chance? I can only give it a try. Zhou gripped his bamboo blade tightly and slashed at Lord Alcohol with demonic astral wheel. Lord Alcohol pressed his finger on the demonic astral wheel as the violently spinning saber beam came to a stop. With a bang, it dissipated into light fragments. Banana Fairy blew a gust of grand wind at Lord Alcohol. Almost at the same time, Zhou used ghost steps and charged towards the longevity tree as though he had teleported. Bang! Lord Alcohol's figure suddenly vanished. As he dodged the grand wind, he struck Zhou down with his palm. He was actually able to keep up with Ghost Step speed. Zhou Wen used the Dragon Gate Fairy skill and the Godfiend Life Providence to deflect the force in midair, but the force was just too powerful. He still slammed into the mountain wall, cracking it as he spat out a mouthful of blood. What a waste. This is enough for me to game many times. Zhou Wen knew that he had no choice but to risk his life. He gripped his bamboo blade tightly and activated Sigh of the King. Saber beams streaked across the void like lightning as they crisscrossed Lord Alcohol's body. With the augmentation of Sigh of the King, Zhou Wen pushed Transcendent, flying immortal to its limits. However, there was the sound of metal clashing. Lord Alcohol used his finger as a sword to block all of Transcendent, flying immortal slashes. After using Transcendent, flying immortal, Zhou Wen failed to injure Lord Alcohol at all. He gritted his teeth and used Transcendent, flying immortal a second time. But halfway through, Zhou Wen's chest was struck by a sword beam, and he was sent flying. After falling to the ground, Zhou Wen struggled to sit up. The wound on his chest was still bleeding. If he hadn't dodged 2 centimeters in that moment of life and death, the sword beam would have pierced through his heart. You're really not bad. Back when Jing Daoxian was your age, he didn't have such strength. However, the more it's like this, the more I can't let you live. As Lord Alcohol spoke, he raised his palm again, hoping to kill Zhou Wen. Zhou Wen gritted his teeth and reached out to take out something from the chaos space. It was a small metal box with a note written by Wang Mingyuan inside. Although he didn't know if the note would be useful against a terrifying existence like Lord Alcohol, he had to give it a try no matter what. Teacher, please bless me. Seeing that Lord Alcohol was about to reach him, Zhou Wen took out the note and opened it. He aimed the words, "Kneel and beg for mercy," at Lord Alcohol. Lord Alcohol's body swayed as his knees bent slightly. However, before Zhou Wen could rejoice, Lord Alcohol's legs straightened again, preventing him from kneeling. It's over. Even Teacher isn't effective this time. Zhou Wen's heart chilled as he knew that he was doomed. A mere 4 words actually have the power to suppress a peak epic. Who wrote this? Zhang Daotian? No, his words aren't like that. Apart from him, who else in the league has such power? Lord Alcohol looked at the words "kneel and beg for mercy" in Zhou Wen's hand and couldn't help but sneer. No matter who you are, you don't have the right to use these words on me. I'll always be Lord Alcohol. With that said, Lord Alcohol struck the palm, sending Zhou Wen and the piece of paper flying. Bam! Zhou Wen slammed into the stone wall again, creating a huge crater. Countless bones in his body had been broken, and his organs were burning with pain. Now, his situation was the exact opposite of Lord Alcohol's. The piece of paper didn't shatter as it floated to Zhou Wen's side. From the looks of it, there's really no hope this time. Zhou Wen glanced at the 4 words on the piece of paper, but when he looked at it, he realized that there were 3 more words on it. These 3 words were in front of the 4 words. They were much smaller than the words "kneel and beg for mercy," but no matter how small they were, it was impossible for him to only see them now. These 3 words seemed to have appeared out of thin air. Furthermore, apart from being a little smaller, the handwriting was still Wang Mingyuan's. The style of the words was something no one could imitate. "My dear disciple, kneel and beg for mercy." Zhou Wen read the 3 words together with the 4 words behind them as his expression turned odd. "Teacher, you can't be messing with me, right? What's the point of me kneeling and begging for mercy now? A person like Lord Alcohol won't let me off just because I kneel and beg for mercy, right?" Zhou Wen thought to himself, but he felt that Wang Mingyuan's actions had a deeper meaning. It was impossible for him to do so for no reason. Seeing that Lord Alcohol was coming over again, Zhou Wen gritted his teeth and prepared to see what Wang Mingyuan could do to help him survive. Chapter 297. Just as Zhou Wen bent his leg, he suddenly felt a violent rage erupt in his body like a volcano. Following, that was an extremely terrifying force that instantly made Zhou Wen's leg bend straight. When Lord Alcohol heard Zhou Wen's words, He was about to mock him when his expression suddenly changed. All the strength in his body instantly erupted as he struck forward with his palms. Boom! Zhou-Wen's body floated in midair with his limbs spread wide open. His hair stood on end as his entire body suffused a demonic and domineering light. When the light erupted, Lord Alcohol used all his strength to block it, but the powerful strength he had obtained from the longevity tree was instantly destroyed. He was sent flying like a kite. Seeing Lord Alcohol fall to the ground and struggle a few times without being able to stand up, Zhou-Wen wore an incredulous look as though he couldn't believe his eyes. Holy **T. So the power of the Sigh of the King doesn't need to go through my body to be activated? Zhou-Wen finally reacted. The power of the Sigh of the King hadn't gone through his body, but had instead erupted directly. In the past, when Zhou-Wen used the Sigh of the King, it was like he was holding a heavy saber that he needed to swing with his own strength. However, this time, the eruption of the Sigh of the King was like using a pistol. After pulling the trigger, the power was shot out. Zhou-Wen didn't need to use any strength, nor did he need his body to withstand the power. Impossible. Such power doesn't belong to the epic stage. Lord Alcohol struggled to stand up as he stared intently at Zhou-Wen as though he was looking at a monster. However, his current situation wasn't much better than Zhou-Wen's. He staggered as he walked and had no ability to continue fighting. Zhou-Wen wasn't any better. He was heavily injured, and with the damage he had suffered from using the Sigh of the King, it was difficult for him to even stand up. Thankfully, I have Banana Fairy. Zhou-Wen ordered Banana Fairy to attack Lord Alcohol. Banana Fairy immediately flew towards Lord Alcohol. Lord Alcohol's expression changed slightly as he forcefully gathered his strength and charged towards the longevity tree. He wanted to climb it again and pluck another longevity fruit. However, just as he touched the longevity tree, he saw roots that resembled poisonous dragons rise from beneath the tree and wrap around Lord Alcohol's body. The tips of the roots pierced into his body like blood-sucking venomous snakes, sucking him dry in the blink of an eye. Save! Lord Alcohol widened his eyes in horror as he stretched out his hand with great difficulty, hoping to seek help. However, just as he said a word, he was pulled into the ground by the roots and vanished. Zhou-Wen felt a chill run down his spine when he saw this. He was even more certain that the longevity tree wasn't anything good. After a while, Zhou-Wen saw a white flower bloom on the longevity tree. The flower bloomed quickly and withered quickly. Soon, it withered and fell, producing a fruit. The fruit looked like a baby sitting cross-legged. It was completely white and emitted an alluring fragrance. Zhou-Wen stared blankly at the fruit on the tree. For some reason, he felt nauseous. The small perfection of Wisdom Sutra kept repairing Zhou-Wen's injured body. Zhou-Wen summoned an ordinary golden warrior and got it to carry him to Lu Yunxian and Lu Ning's side. After checking their injuries, he realized that although their injuries weren't light, they weren't dead. They had only fainted. However, they didn't have the ability to heal themselves. After suffering such serious injuries, it would be difficult for them to survive if they weren't treated quickly. They could die at any moment. New 81 Chinese website updates, fastest cell phone. Dr. Darkness's injuries are also very serious. Furthermore, even if he isn't injured, that fellow only knows how to fight poison with poison. He doesn't know how to heal people. Zhou-Wen couldn't think a way to save them. Just as he was sighing, he heard a rustling sound. It came from the direction of the longevity tree. Realizing that something was amiss, Zhou-Wen turned his head and realized that the roots of the longevity tree had drilled out again. Like strange snakes, they swept towards Zhou-Wen and company. Zhou-Wen hurriedly summoned the demonized general and the saber shield knight. He got them to take one each and ran toward the front hall with Lu Yunxian and Lu Ning. Sukunzu when also sat on White Shadow of Poison's back and got it to carry him out. But before they could run out, the tree roots that drilled out of the ground had already crawled to the exit of the rear hall. Like a spider web, they crisscrossed and sealed the exit. It's over. I wonder if there's any use in kneeling now. Zhou-Wen cursed inwardly. Seeing the large swath of roots sweeping over, he could only grit his teeth and charge towards the underground fault. The bottom of the fault was dark red and filled with a sea of blood threadworms. However, Zhou had no other choice. He leaped down along with Lu Yunxian and Lu Ning. The tree roots seemed to have some misgivings. When they reached the side of the fault, they didn't chase after them. After Zhou Wan and company landed, they could only rely on their companion beasts to kill the swarms of blood threadworms. However, there were just too many of them. They couldn't kill them all, and the 3 of them didn't have any combat strength. 2 of them were unconscious, so blood threadworms had already crawled onto Lu Yunxian and Lu Ning. Clang, clang, clang. Just as Zhou was feeling helpless, he heard a familiar voice. The strange car? It's here. Zhou was delighted as he hurriedly controlled his companion beast to fight the blood threadworms. As long as he lasted until the strange car arrived, the 3 of them would be saved. Indeed, it didn't take long for the strange car to drive out of the cave. Zhou looked at the strange car and was surprised to discover that there was a person on it. Young Master One, why are you here? Didn't I get Lu Yunxian to take care of you and forbid you from entering the ancient battlefield? The person on the strange car was none other than Sheng. Zhou wasn't in the mood to answer Sheng's question as he shouted at him. Let's not talk about this for now. Quickly get Lu Yunxian and Lu Ning onto the car. They can't hold on any longer. And Sheng jumped down from the strange car. His clothes were neat, and even his hair wasn't messy. Clearly, he wasn't as miserable as Lu Ning imagined. And Sheng got Lu Yunxian and Lu Ning onto the strange car. Zhou also jumped up and sat in the strange car, panting. Didn't I forbid you from entering? Why are you here again? And Sheng looked at Zhou reproachfully. Do you think I wanted to come? If it wasn't to give you that darn stone artifact, I wouldn't have come to such a godforsaken place. Zhou recounted what had happened. After Sheng heard that, he said in surprise, the stone artifact is actually on you. Well done. Quickly give it to me. Without it, I won't be able to open the ancient temple's door and rescue Madam. That's right. The stone artifact is with me. But there's a small problem, Zhou said with a cough. Don't tell me you lost the stone artifact again. And Sheng said as he looked at Zhou. Chapter 298. I didn't lose it, but the stone artifact was eaten by one of my companion beasts. It has now turned into a stone egg and is in the process of evolving. Zhou took out the stone egg that Truth Listener had transformed into. I wonder if this can be used as a replacement for the stone artifact. I don't know. I'll give it a try. And Sheng wasn't sure either. After some thought, he said, give me the stone egg and leave in the chariot. This chariot will keep driving out of the ruins, so there shouldn't be any danger. Lu Yunxian and Lu Ning's injuries also need to be treated. There are no healing-type companion beasts here. Were you the one who sent Lu Ning out? Zhou said as he handed the stone egg to Sheng. The blood threadworms on her aren't easy to deal with, so I had to send her out first. And Sheng said as he took the stone egg. What's going on with you and Lord Alcohol? Zhou didn't believe that Sheng would be careless enough to bring a group of people with ulterior motives without knowing anything. It can be considered a mutual benefit. Lord Alcohol has a motive, and I also need someone to attract the attention of the longevity tree at the Temple of Immortals. And Sheng carefully put away the stone egg. Have Sis Lan and the former principal been found? Are they all right? Zhou asked the question he wanted to know the most. They should be inside the temple. However, due to the lack of the stone artifact, we couldn't open the temple. Now that we have this stone egg, we should be able to open the temple and rescue them if nothing unexpected happens. Go back first. We'll talk when I get back. As Sheng spoke, he jumped off the strange chariot and headed for the cave that the strange chariot had come from. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared. Zhou heaved a sigh of relief as he leaned against the chariot's back. He felt his entire body hurt. If I had known that I could have taken the chariot directly to the temple to find Sheng, I wouldn't have gone through so much trouble. I nearly died. Zhou looked at Lu Yunxian and Lu Ning and saw that they were in terrible condition. He didn't know if they could last until they returned to the camp. On the return journey, the chariot took the same route as when it came. After passing through the desert and sea, the chariot drove out of the ruins' underground tunnel. Zhou Wen brought Lu Yunxian and Lu Ning back to the camp. Zhao Xian treated their injuries and finally saved their lives. The blood threadworms that had crawled into their bodies weren't fatal, but as Dr. Darkness was seriously injured, he was temporarily unable to remove the blood threadworms. All he could do was leave them unconscious. Zhou Wen was also severely injured, but the spring recovery vine's strength was limited. Zhou Wen got Zhao Xian to take care of Lu Yunxian and Lu Ning while he used the small perfection of Wisdom Sutra's recovery powers to slowly recover. Lying in bed, he grinded the bat cave again. Although the drop rate of bats wasn't high, there were quite a lot of them. They did drop some items, but none of them were good. When will a baby tiger drop? I'll bring the baby tiger to grind the bat cave. I'll definitely gain a lot more. Zhou Wen was extremely displeased that he hadn't managed to get the baby tiger. Arriving at the underground seaside again, Zhou Wen carefully sized up the sapphire sky, but he didn't discover anything inside. Why isn't there a chariot in the game? Since he couldn't travel in the air, Zhou Wen could only walk on the surface of the sea. He rode on White Shadow of Poison and flew at a low altitude, not daring to fly too high. After flying for a short while, he saw seawater spray out as a black gem-like sea dragon rushed out of the sea. It opened its mouth and tried to devour Zhou Wen and White Shadow of Poison. Its dragon mouth was like a black hole with terrifying suction force, sucking White Shadow of Poison in. It had no way of resisting and couldn't even fly out despite struggling. Zhou Wen hurriedly got White Shadow of Poison to use its Shadow of Darkness skill. It was really effective as it transformed into a shadow along with a blood-colored avatar. Then, it used Flash to escape the dragon's devouring. But soon, from different directions, a few black dragon heads popped out and opened their mouths to suck at White Shadow of Poison. Zhou Wen's heart remained calm as he controlled the blood-colored avatar to use ghost steps to jump off White Shadow of Poison's back and rush into the sea. White Shadow of Poison was bitten by a few dragon heads and could no longer survive. After the blood-colored avatar jumped into the sea, Zhou Wen controlled it to quickly dive down as he looked at the bodies of the sea dragons. Zhou Wen had seen them twice before and realized that the parts of their bodies under the sea seemed to be connected. Now that he had the chance, he naturally had to take a closer look. As far as he could see, Zhou Wen was surprised to discover that it wasn't a 9-headed dragon. The parts of the 9 black dragons' bodies under the sea were chained up. Black chains passed through their spines, and their bodies were connected to a black war chariot. The war chariot seemed to be made of metal. The walls were sealed, and there was a roof. It was impossible to see what was inside. When the 9 black dragons moved, they would pull the huge metal war chariot slowly. Therefore, the speed of the black dragons was greatly restricted. Otherwise, they would have run even faster. A war chariot pulled by 9 black dragons. Who has the right to sit in such a war chariot? Zhou Wen didn't know if there were any creatures inside the war chariot. If there were, it would be terrifying. However, from the looks of it, it had been abandoned for a long time. There were many things like seaweed wrapped around it. There were also some shellfish and corals that had taken root, making the war chariot look very strange. Wait, what's that? Zhou Wen's gaze landed on the corals on the war chariot and suddenly lit up. In the midst of the corals and the seaweed, there was a black gemstone-like bead. Zhou Wen suspected that the bead was the legendary dragon pearl or a dragon egg. If I can obtain that dragon pearl, I wonder if I can use its power to raise my final stat to 21 points? Just as Zhou Wen had this thought, the game screen turned black. A black dragon devoured the blood-colored avatar, ending Zhou Wen's game. However, Zhou Wen wasn't depressed. Instead, he was extremely excited. He seemed to see hope of advancing to the epic stage. Those black dragons were very likely mythical creatures. The dragon pearl in the coral nest might be their descendants. Eating a dragon egg should be able to replace the effects of the divine blood. Most importantly, the 9 black dragons were chained to the black war chariot. As the war chariot was too heavy, the 9 black dragons' mobility was greatly affected. This gave Zhou an opportunity to snatch the dragon pearl. Otherwise, it was impossible for Zhou to survive in front of those mythical creatures. How can I obtain that dragon pearl? Zhou kept thinking. Although he felt that it was highly possible, Zhou made a few more attempts. However, he failed to approach the war chariot and was devoured by the black dragons. From the looks of it, I have to think of a meticulous plan. I wonder if kneeling will work? Zhou thought to himself. Chapter 299. Zhou didn't know if kneeling was useful in real life, but it was indeed useless in-game. Don't ask Zhou why he knew. Just saying it made him want to cry. After grinding for a few days in the camp, he didn't obtain any Dragon Balls. Instead, he killed quite a number of poison bats. His poison stat had already reached 15 points, and a few poison bat companion eggs dropped. However, the poison bat stats were far inferior to the white shadow of poison. Zhou fed them to his pets as food. On the 4th day, Sheng returned with Ouyang Lan and a few others. When Zhou saw that the former principal wasn't among them, he immediately had an ominous feeling. Sis Lan. Zhou went forward to ask why he didn't see the former principal. Ouyang Lan looked somewhat exhausted as she forced a smile and said, "Little one," and Sheng said that you helped us a lot this time. However, don't take the risk to do such things again in the future. This has already exceeded your abilities. Luck can't always be on your side. I got it. Sis Lan, where's the former principal? Zhou hurriedly asked. Ouyang Lan's expression darkened. I didn't find him. We found some items of my dad and the other experts in the temple, but we didn't find any traces of them in the temple. Zhou's mood improved when he heard that they hadn't been found. Not finding them meant that there is still hope. Hence, Zhou said, could it be that they aren't in the temple and are trapped somewhere else? That shouldn't be the case. It's easy to enter the temple, but it's very difficult to leave. If no one outside opens the mechanism, it's impossible for the people inside to come out. My dad and the rest have clearly gone deep into the temple. Without anyone rescuing them, it's unlikely they can come out, Ouyang Lan said with a shake of her head. Zhou was taken aback when he heard that. Just as he was about to ask Sheng said, Madam hasn't rested for a long time inside. Let her rest for a while. Zhou had no choice but to swallow the words that were at the tip of his tongue. He planned on asking Sheng later. Everyone returned to the camp. Before Zhou could find Sheng came to Zhou's tent and roughly explained what had happened inside. Ouyang Lan and Sheng had found the temple by following the marks left behind by the former principal. They didn't find any marks left behind by the former principal anywhere else, so they were certain that the former principal was in the temple. However, they couldn't find him despite searching the entire temple. The last mark left behind by the old headmaster was on the altar in the temple, which meant that something must have happened to them after they arrived there. However, that was already the innermost layer of the temple. There were no other exits, nor were there any mechanisms that could make people disappear. The old principal and the others seemed to have vanished into thin air. Zhou frowned in silence after hearing that. There was definitely something wrong with the temple, but even people as knowledgeable as Sheng and Ouyang Lan couldn't find any clues. It was probably useless even if he went. Don't worry, we've already scouted out a small part of the ruins. With the chariot, it's safe to go to the temple. We'll find professionals to investigate the temple and look for all possibilities. Sheng paused before saying, however, based on the current situation, it won't take a day or two to find old student Ouyang. Madam wants you to return to school first and not waste time here. All right, I'll head back. However, before I leave, can you take me to the temple? I want to take a look. Although he knew that it was useless, Zhou refused to give up unless he took a look. Sheng seemed to have guessed that Zhou would make such a request, so he nodded and agreed. The path to the temple was indeed very safe. The chariot was a direct train that went straight to the temple. It would automatically stop when it reached the temple. Someone needed to activate it before it would head to the entrance of the ruins. and Sheng led Zhou into the temple. As he had already scouted out the various dangers in the temple, Zhou didn't sense much danger when Sheng led him in. They went all the way to the innermost part of the temple, and Sheng showed Zhou the mark left behind by the former principal. Zhou looked around the temple for a long time, but he didn't find any clues. Although he was indignant, Zhou had no choice but to return. It was useless for him to stay here. He could use his phone to enter the temple to continue exploring. Perhaps he could find some clues. However, there was no chariot in-game. If Zhou wanted to reach the temple, he had to pass through the underground sea. This was also a difficult problem. Zhou roughly knew that the chariot in-game was likely parked in front of the temple. As no one activated it, it didn't appear. Clearly, the chariot's purpose was to send people out, not bring them in. And Sheng got someone to send Zhou back to Luoyang. After Zhou returned to school, he felt a sense of familiarity. He hadn't been away for many days, but he felt a little uncomfortable. Perhaps the contrast between the comfortable life in school and the daily life-and-death struggle on the Zhuelu battlefield was too great. He couldn't immediately adapt to the contrast. My top priority is to advance to the epic stage as soon as possible. Otherwise, if something really happens, it will be difficult to deal with it if I'm not strong enough. Zhou thought about how he could obtain the Dragon Pearl. As the Dragon Pearl was underwater, an aerial movement technique like the Dragon Gate fairy skill wasn't very effective in water. Ghost Step's effects were greatly reduced due to the water's resistance. This left Zhou very vexed. Unable to think of a good solution, Zhou first went to Wang Mingyuan's place. Knowing that Wang Mingyuan loved tea, he specially got Sheng to buy some good tea for him. Of course, Zhou paid for it himself. "Teacher, this slip of paper of yours is a lifesaver. However, I tried it again. Why is it useless?" Zhou took out the slip of paper and respectfully returned it to Wang Mingyuan. Later, he tested it a few more times and realized that ever since the slip of paper was used on Lord Alcohol, it no longer had any effect on other dimensional creatures. It was as though it was just an ordinary slip of paper. Have you ever seen a bowl of rice that can't be finished no matter how much you eat? Wang Mingyuan took back the slip of paper and said with a smile. Zhou immediately understood that the power on the slip of paper had been exhausted. "Teacher, how did you know that my life providence would react if I knelt down and begged for mercy?" Zhou asked the question on his mind again. He had never told Wang Mingyuan what his life providence was. Wang Mingyuan said with a smile, "My research includes the art of observing people. It can be considered to have some success, so I can tell a bit about your life providence. I observe your life providence to have its own pride. It's something I've never seen in my life. I know that your life providence is extraordinary and that it shouldn't be able to endure such humiliation. It might be of some use. I got you to give it a try. From the looks of it, it really worked. Give it a try." Zhou was instantly rendered speechless. "Then, can I still use this move in the future?" Zhou hurriedly asked. Since this move was so useful and he didn't really need to kneel, it would be a waste not to use it. Have you heard of the idiom, "One would rather die than be humiliated"? One time can make your life providence erupt in anger. If it's repeated, I'm afraid this anger will be vented on you. I wonder if you can withstand it. If you can give it a try," Wang Mingyuan said with a smile. Zhou couldn't help but shiver when he thought of Lord Alcohol's outcome. He hurriedly said in all seriousness, "A man's knees are gold. I've never thought of kneeling. I'm just asking." Chapter 300. The antelope and chick that Wang Lu had entrusted to take care of were also brought back by Zhou. It wasn't good to keep troubling Wang Lu. Furthermore, he had to return the favor eventually. It would be even more troublesome when the time came. The chick had clearly gained a lot of weight from eating. Although it looked a little bigger, Zhou had a nagging feeling that it wasn't because it had grown up. The antelope still looked like it was on the brink of death. It lay lazily on the sofa and slept all day. Apart from food that piqued its interest, it didn't move much. After consulting Wang Mingyuan, Zhou learned that in the school's dimensional zone, there was a place called Poison WRM Pool. In the pool, there There was an epic creature, Poison WYRM. The Poison WYRM had a chance of dropping a primordial energy skill called Dragon Transformation Art. It was a movement technique in water that could greatly increase a person's speed in water. Zhou Wen's current goal was the Dragon Transformation Art. However, Poison WYRM pool would only occasionally have one Poison WYRM appear. Basically, when it was discovered, it would be dealt with by the military. As for the dimensional zone where Poison WYRM pool was, it was controlled by the military. If students wanted to enter, they had to apply for a pass from the military. Even if Zhou Wen had a phone to download it, he had to find a tiny palm symbol in the dimensional zone. He could definitely enter by getting in Sheng, but doing so was equivalent to using the family's connections. Zhou Wen didn't wish to do so. Therefore, Zhou Wen called Li Xian to see if he had any way to obtain a pass. Li Xian didn't know much about the place, so he only said that he would ask through his connections. If he could obtain it, he would quote a price for Zhou Wen to see if it was suitable. Finally, Zhou Wen spent 30,000 yuan to obtain a pass. It was a one-time use, and he couldn't stay inside for more than 48 hours. Old Zhou, why are you going to the underground pool city? Although there are many rare dimensional creatures there, they are all at the epic stage. It's probably very difficult to kill them now. Furthermore, it's not safe. Typically, tutors of the school will apply to go there when they need special companion beasts, Li Xian said as he handed the pass to Zhou Wen. I want to go to Poison WYRM pool to take a look. I heard that there's a Poison WYRM there that can drop an underwater movement technique. I'm very interested in that, Zhou Wen said. Li Xian immediately waved his hand when he heard that. You said you want to pass there. I've also studied the situation there. The venomous snake you mentioned isn't something you can kill at the legendary stage. Even if you can kill it, you won't have chance. Legend has it that snakes transform into flood dragons after 1,000 years, and flood dragons transform into dragons after 1,000 years. Although the poison flood dragon hasn't transformed into a dragon, it's a top-notch existence at the epic stage. Furthermore, its body is poisonous. Even the water in the poison flood dragon pool is extremely poisonous. Ordinary epic creatures can't enter the poison flood dragon pool, much less kill it. I'm just going to take a look. It's fine as long as it works. If it doesn't, forget it. Just treat it as broadening my horizons. After sending Li Xian off, Zhou Wen took the pass and headed to the underground pool city. When the soldiers guarding the underground pool city saw that a student was about to enter pool city, they kindly reminded him, "Student, although there aren't many dimensional creatures in pool city, all of them are at the epic stage. Furthermore, they have their own specialties. If there's nothing important, it's best you don't enter." Thank you for the reminder. I'm just going to take a look. I won't go far, Zhou Wen said gratefully. After handing over the pass, Zhou Wen passed through the checkpoint and arrived in front of the underground pool city. The surroundings of pool city were submerged, but the water wasn't deep. The deepest part was about a meter or so, and he could see the ground in the shallowest areas. There were many plants growing in the water. There were many reeds, making it look like a forest. From afar, he could see an underground ancient city. The city walls were already modeled, as though they had experienced the merciless destruction of time. Zhou Wen had heard that there were many water monsters in Pool City. Apart from the poison flood dragon, there were often all sorts of water-type dimensional creatures. However, it was fine outside the city. Most of the powerful dimensional creatures were inside the city. There was a cement bridge outside that led all the way to Pool City's entrance. Just as Zhou Wen stepped onto the bridge, he heard that someone had come to Pool City. When he turned to look, he was slightly taken aback. The person walking over from the checkpoint was his tutor, Wang Fei. Although Wang Fei had introduced Zhou Wen to Wang Mingyuan to study, according to the school's rules, Zhou Wen was still a student of Wang Fei's class. Wang Fei was clearly surprised to see Zhou Wen. After completing the procedures, she walked to the bridge and asked Zhou Wen, "Why are you here? This place is too dangerous for students." Teacher Wang Mingyuan got me to come here to take a look. It's a form of observation and learning. I'll just take a look outside and not enter, Zhou Wen said, using Wang Mingyuan's name to prevent Wang Fei from saying anything else. Since it's observation and learning, Follow me. I'm your tutor after all. I can't just let Uncle Mingyuan teach you. Treat it as a lesson for you today, Wang Fei said as she walked along the bridge towards the city gate. I'm really just here to take a look. I don't want to enter. Zhou was depressed, but he couldn't say it out loud. All he could do was follow behind Wang Fei. As he walked, Zhou sized up the city gate of Pool City, hoping to see if he could find the tiny palm symbol. This time, Zhou's luck was pretty good. He immediately saw a tiny palm symbol beside the signboard on the city gate. Engraved on the palm was an ancient hieroglyph, water. Zhou hurriedly took out his phone and took a picture of the tiny palm symbol on the city gate. When Wang Fei saw it, she said, "Why are you taking a picture of the city gate? Take a good picture when we encounter dimensional creatures. It's best if it's a video and we can slowly study it when we return." Water-type dimensional creatures are a topic that all the Federation's colleges are focusing on. It's very helpful for future expeditions at sea. Zhou also knew that the Federation had always wanted to conquer overseas, but because the situation at sea was different from land, there weren't many people who could really go out to sea. However, experts had predicted that the era of great navigation would soon arrive. Due to this prediction, the price of companion eggs that were related to water rose by a huge wave. Some of them increased by more than 10 times. However, 20 to 30 years had passed, and the so-called era of great navigation still hadn't appeared. It was still extremely dangerous for ordinary people to go out to sea. Even epic creatures didn't dare easily go out to sea. After downloading the Pool City dungeon, Zhou felt a lot more relaxed. He wasn't afraid of the epic creatures, so he thought that it would be good to follow Wang Fei in to take a look. It might be of some help to understand how water-type dimensional creatures fought. After entering Pool City, he realized that the streets were even more flooded. Most of the houses had half their floors submerged. It was a flooded city. Whoosh! Just as the two of them entered Pool City, they saw a wave not far ahead. Something in the water seemed to be rapidly approaching them. Chapter 301. There are two types of water-type dimensional creatures commonly seen in Pool City. Pay attention to the fluctuations of the waves. If the angle of the waves is only about 30 degrees, you have to be careful. That's an epic electric eel. It has extremely powerful lightning powers. Lightning is easily transmitted in water. The best way to encounter an electric eel is to leave the water. It's best if you can fly. If you can't, choose to jump onto a building. In short, you absolutely can't stay in the water unless you have the confidence to withstand the epic lightning with your body. If the angle of the waves is about 50 degrees, that's an epic swordfang fish. Its attack power is very strong, but its intelligence is too low. To an epic expert, it's basically a blessing. Wang Fei patiently explained to Zhou. She had already learned of Zhou's actions at the Zhuelu battlefield from Ouyang Lan. Although Ouyang Lan was very worried about the former principal, she still mentioned Zhou several times and exhorted Wang Fei to help her take good care of him. Wang Fei admitted that she didn't have the ability to teach a special genius like Zhou, but it wasn't a problem for her to teach him some practical experience. After all, Wang Fei had been a real soldier in the past and had participated in many battles. It's very simple to deal with the swordfang fish because its attack power is very strong, but it doesn't have any brains. All you need to do is dodge its attack and stab it. As Wang Fei spoke, the swordfang fish had already arrived in front of her like a torpedo. Its speed in the water was astonishing. Wang Fei's figure flashed slightly before she drew her sword and slashed upwards. After crossing the swordfang fish, a wave of blood appeared in the water behind her. Soon, a 2-meter-long strange fish floated up with its white belly upturned. It was clearly dead. This was the first time Zhou had seen Wang Fei attack. Her sword technique was fast and accurate without losing its elegance. It gave one the feeling that she was leisurely wandering between life and death. She was indeed an expert at the epic stage. Wang Fei sheathed her sword and turned to Zhou. However, if you want to do that, you have to wait for the swordfang fish to come close enough. You have to wait until it's within a meter of you before quickly dodging and striking. You can't give it time to react. If you don't have the confidence to dodge at such a close distance, it's best you jump onto the wall. Don't fight it head-on, understand? Understood. Zhou nodded in response. Wang Fei's experience was gained from actual combat. To a normal person, this experience could be obtained by risking their life. Now that Zhou had Banana Fairy, ordinary epic creatures couldn't do a thing to him. As long as he didn't deliberately court death, he wouldn't be in too much danger in Pool City. Teacher, where are you going? Zhou asked Wang Fei, who was walking in front of him. Although he had Banana Fairy with him, he didn't wish to take too many risks. Don't worry, I'm just taking a stroll nearby. I heard that an electric eel recently appeared here. I happen to want an electric eel companion beast, so I came to try my luck, said Wang Fei. Only then did Zhou feel relieved. As long as she didn't go to places like the poison WYRM pool, nothing would happen. Wang Fei led Zhou on the roofs of the buildings, but her gaze was fixed on the water below, searching for traces of the electric eel. They didn't find the electric eel, but they found a sword fang fish. Wang Fei looked at Zhou and asked, "Do you want to give it a try? I heard that you already have the ability to kill epic creatures." "There's no need. I'm not good at fighting in water," Zhou said with a shake of his head. Although Wang Fei had already demonstrated the technique of killing the sword fang fish very clearly, Zhou still felt that since he could safely hunt it in-game, there was no need for him to risk his life to gain experience. Wang Fei didn't say anything about Zhou not killing the sword fang fish. After all, she had heard it from Ouyang Lan. She also knew that Ouyang Lan had heard it from Ensheng, and Ensheng had heard it from Lu Yunxian. Therefore, Wang Fei felt that it was somewhat exaggerated. After all, Ouyang Lan had always thought highly of Zhou. After the incident at the ruined battlefield, she would definitely think even more of him. It was understandable that she had embellished it. It's right that you chose not to attempt it. Killing sword fang fish also requires experience. Watch by the side. I'll demonstrate again. As Wang Fei spoke, she jumped into the water. She stood on the surface of the water without sinking. It looked like her alacrity was rather impressive. Sensing the fluctuations in the water, the ripples in the water immediately rushed towards Wang Fei. It looked very fast, and something was amiss. Wang Fei frowned slightly as though she had realized something. Splash! With a splash, a 4-meter-long golden sword fang fish leaped out of the water and stabbed at Wang Fei like a sharp sword that streaked across the sky. On the golden sword fang fish's body, one could see a blob of golden light. It's a mutated sword fang fish. Wang Fei's eyes focused as she pulled out the sword in her hand and slashed out a sword beam at the mutated sword fang fish. Clang! When the sword beams collided, many sword beams appeared on the golden sword fang fish's body. They cracked like gears, forcefully shattering Wang Fei's sword beam. Wang Fei tapped the surface of the water with her toes and dodged the sword fang fish's attack, engaging it in battle. Zhou watched from the side and realized that the golden sword fang fish was much stronger than the average sword fang fish, especially its sword beam. It could shatter all kinds of primordial energy skills. Wang Fei's sword techniques were extremely exquisite, but the sword beams shattered the moment they touched the sword fang fish's body. She couldn't injure the golden sword fang fish at all. However, Wang Fei's movement technique was elegant and fast. Although the sword fang fish's sword beams were fast, they couldn't injure her. However, the situation was in a stalemate. After watching for a while, Zhou roughly knew the golden sword fang fish's weakness. Although Wang Fei wasn't weaker than the sword fang fish and the quality of her companion beast was very high, she didn't have the ability to restrain the golden sword fang fish. Therefore, she was in a stalemate. However, Wang Fei was clearly stronger than the golden sword fang fish. She could definitely kill it, but it would take her more time. Seeing that the battle wouldn't end anytime soon, Zhou sat on the roof and took out his phone. As he gamed, he waited for Wang Fei to kill the golden sword fang fish. When Wang Fei saw that Zhou was sitting there gaming, she nearly died from anger. All she could do was vent her anger on the golden swordfang fish, but it was a little troublesome. She couldn't finish it off in a short period of time. Just as Wang Fei was feeling depressed, she suddenly saw a wave appear on the long street in the distance. The angle of the wave was extremely small as it shot over like an arrow. Electric eel? Wang Fei was immediately alarmed. She still had the strength to deal with a golden swordfang fish, but it would be difficult to deal with an electric eel. Chapter 302. However, on second thought, Wang Fei realized that this was a good opportunity to teach Zhou Wen a lesson. She wanted Zhou Wen to see how he could fight 1 against 2 in a disadvantageous situation and ultimately obtain victory. Zhou Wen also saw the new wave. According to the knowledge taught by Wang Fei, he recognized it as the electric eel and hurriedly got up to help. However, he heard Wang Fei say loudly, "In actual combat in dimensional zones, you often encounter situations that are extremely disadvantageous to you, especially when you're besieged by dimensional creatures. This is a common situation. Learning how to deal with disadvantageous situations is very important for your survival in dimensional zones in the future. Watch carefully. I'll now demonstrate how to use positioning and entanglement to deal with more than 2-dimensional creatures." Upon hearing Wang Fei say that, Zhou Wen sat down again. He really wasn't gaming as he stared at the battle on Wang Fei's side. "Child, watch your teacher's performance carefully." Wang Fei took a deep breath and tapped the surface of the water with her toes. Like an elegant fairy, she dodged the swordfang fish's sword beam and slashed at the electric eel that was charging at her. The electric eel in the water leaped out of the water. It was an eel that was more than 5 meters long. Its entire body shimmered with silver light, as though silver lightning was dancing on its scales. Wang Fei's heart skipped a beat when she saw this. This was because ordinary electric eels were cyan in color, but this electric eel was actually silver. Furthermore, the lightning was a strange silver color, not the normal cyan color. Clearly, it was another mutated species. What's going on? Wang Fei felt that something was amiss. Usually, it wasn't easy to find a mutated dimensional creature, but now, there were 2 at the same time. This was too odd. More importantly, Wang Fei had never encountered mutated electric eels before. She didn't know much about them, so she didn't know if she could deal with 2 epic mutated creatures at the same time. Boom! The silver lightning on the mutated electric eel's body exploded and collided with Wang Fei's sword beam. The sword beam immediately shattered as Wang Fei saw silver bolts of lightning descend from the sky. Zhou Wen stared intently at Wang Fei's battle with the 2 mutated fish. He watched as Wang Fei's movement technique resembled an immortal as she constantly dodged the attacks on the surface of the water. He couldn't help but marvel inwardly. As expected of a tutor, she's indeed extraordinary. Just this movement technique is above my Dragon Gate fairy skill. From the looks of it, I still need to work harder. Zhou Wen had never seen an electric eel before, nor did he know that it was a mutated electric eel. He imagined that Wang Fei was deliberately displaying her movement techniques and exquisite positioning for him to see. Wang Fei was suffering in silence. The mutated electric eel was harder to deal with than she had imagined. The silver lightning was extraordinary, and it could spread across a large area in the water. Coupled with its amazing speed, Wang Fei was unable to catch up to the mutated electric eel. One couldn't be killed, while the other couldn't be caught up to. Although Wang Fei was capable, she couldn't use them for a moment. All she could do was face the barrage of lightning and sword beams. She constantly dodged and had no chance of counterattacking. She had the intention of retreating temporarily, but she had already said those words in front of Zhou Wen. It would be too embarrassing to retreat now. In the beginning, Wang Fei wanted to rely on her own abilities to find a way to kill the 2 mutated companion beasts, but she soon realized that it was almost impossible. The mutated swordfang fish could still tear apart her sword beams through repeated attacks, but the mutated electric eel had a dual water elemental escape technique. With the combination of lightning and water escape in an environment like Pool City, the distance of 1,000 meters was almost instantaneous. Wang Fei couldn't keep up with its speed at all. She wanted to set up a sword beam to stop the electric eel, but the mutated sword fang fish tore apart the sword beam she set up, preventing them from forming any effective combat strength. Instead, the mutated electric eel's lightning attacks caused Wang Fei a lot of trouble. Lightning flashed in the water, making it impossible for her to touch it. Bolts of lightning struck down from the sky, making it rather difficult for her to dodge. If she were on land, she could still summon companion beasts to help, but apart from flying companion beasts, the other companion beasts would be electrocuted the moment they enter the water. It was useless to summon them. Instantly, Wang Fei was in a very awkward situation. She couldn't fight or retreat. She felt extremely conflicted. Although Zhou Wen didn't understand Wang Fei's complicated feelings, his talent in combat was still very good. He quickly realized that Wang Fei's situation wasn't looking good. It could no longer be described as a disadvantage. If she continued fighting, Wang Fei's life would probably be in danger. Without any further thought, he summoned the banana fan and aimed at the moment the mutated sword fang fish leaped out of the water. He slapped it with the fan. When Wang Fei saw the mutated sword fang fish rush over with a sword beam that resembled a wheel of light, she was about to dodge when a gust of wind suddenly swept over. The surface of the water was swept up into a wave that was several meters tall. If it wasn't for the fact that the water had already reached the bottom, the wave would probably have been much higher. The wind swept up the wave and struck the mutated sword fang fish's body, immediately sending it flying. Even the water beneath it spewed up into the sky like a water pillar that reached the sky. What was even more miraculous was that the water pillar turned into ice and froze in midair. Even a mutated sword fang fish was frozen in the water pillar. It looked extremely strange. Wang Fei was slightly taken aback as she turned her head to look in the direction of the cold wind. She saw Zhou Wen standing on the roof with a jade-like palm leaf fan in his hand. When she looked over, Zhou Wen had just tucked the fan to his chest. He looked rather refined. Zhou Wen really has the ability to kill an epic creature. Isn't the strength of this fan a little too much? Even among epic creatures, there aren't many who can use such an attack. Wang Fei's expression turned extremely complicated. However, Wang Fei was someone who had been through a lot. After being taken aback for a moment, she immediately snapped out of her daze and dodged the mutated electric eel's attack. Without the mutated sword fang fish restraining her, it was much easier for Wang Fei to deal with the mutated electric eel. Zhou Wen didn't help again, but Wang Fei no longer had the mood to show off. All she wanted was to quickly finish off the mutated electric eel. It wasn't that Zhou Wen didn't want to help, but that the Grandine wind had drained him of his primordial energy. He needed a rest for a while before he could use it a second time. However, even if he used it a second time, it would probably be useless. The mutated electric eel's electric water elemental escape technique was too fast. The Grandine wind might not be able to catch up to it. Wang Fei vented all her frustration on the mutated electric eel. Sword beams slashed out one after another, forming afterimages in the air. Soon, Zhou Wen realized that the afterimages weren't real afterimages, but corporeal sword beams that remained in the air. Due to the collision of the mutated sword fang fish's sword beams, the sword beams couldn't be preserved and were shattered. Now that the mutated sword fang fish was gone, the sword beams formed a sword net in the air. When the electric eel slammed into it, its body was immediately covered in blood and wounds. Wang Fei couldn't feel smug after finishing off the mutated sword fang fish cleanly. Chapter 303. Ms. Wang, your movement techniques and sword techniques are truly exquisite. Can I learn from you? Zhou Wen asked Wang Fei sincerely. Wang Fei frowned at Zhou Wen, unsure if he was being sarcastic. Although Zhou Wen's EQ wasn't high, he could tell that something was amiss with Wang Fei's gaze. He hurriedly explained, My main cultivation direction is movement techniques, but compared to you, I'm still far inferior. I wonder if you can tell me the name of the movement technique you use and what kind of dimensional creatures can drop primordial energy skills. Wang Fei was momentarily at a loss whether to laugh or cry when she saw that Zhou Wen was very sincere and wasn't being sarcastic. She had thought of so many methods in the past, hoping that Zhou Wen could learn from her, but they were all useless. Who knew that under such circumstances, Zhou Wen would have the thought of learning from her? This movement technique is unique to our family. It's very difficult for outsiders to learn it. Zhou Wen wanted to learn from her, but Wang Fei was in a difficult position. This movement technique was a secret technique of the Wang family. It required the combination of 3 different movement techniques and primordial energy skills to master. Furthermore, the 3 primordial energy skill crystals were unique to the Wang family's dimensional zone. It was impossible for outsiders to obtain them. I see. Then I'll take a look at other movement techniques. Zhou Wen was somewhat disappointed. Wang Fei's movement technique was indeed stronger than his Dragon Gate fairy skill. Furthermore, it was more practical. However, since it was a secret technique of the Wang family, Zhou Wen could only give up. Seeing Zhou Wen's disappointed expression, Wang Fei felt a little upset. In the past, she wanted Zhou Wen to learn from her, but he refused. Now that he wanted to learn, she couldn't teach him. You are my student and a disciple acknowledged by Uncle Mingyuan. You aren't an outsider. How about this? I'll return and discuss it with my family's elders. Perhaps there's a chance, Wang Fei said after some thought. She really didn't wish to miss an opportunity to teach Zhou Wen. Thank you, Ms. Wang. If it's too troublesome, forget it. Zhou Wen actually didn't wish to trouble Wang Fei. We'll talk about it when the time comes. This matter might not be settled. Wang Fei didn't say anything else because she really wasn't confident. If it wasn't for the fact that Zhou Wen was the one who wanted to learn, Wang Fei wouldn't have even attempted to vie for it. He dragged the mutated sword Fong fish and mutated electric eel up and realized that they each had a companion egg in their bodies. 2 companion eggs had dropped at once. This is yours. Wang Fei handed the mutated sword Fong fish companion egg to Zhou Wen and put away the mutated electric eel companion egg. Zhou Wen thought that he had indeed contributed, so he didn't stand on ceremony. He put away the mutated sword Fong companion egg and planned on thinking of a way to hatch it when he returned. It might come in handy when he went to poison WYRM pool to kill it. In Bright Prospects College's cafeteria, a boy with short black hair was eating quietly. A girl walked over and sat opposite him. She said excitedly, Mingxiu, I've obtained a spot as an exchange student at Sunset College. I can go to Sunset College with you this time. Is go to Sunset College worth being so happy about? The boy looked up at the girl, seemingly puzzled. Of course it's worth being happy about. That's Sunset College. It's the best college in Luoyang. It's not just in the Luoyang area. Many outstanding geniuses in the entire league wish to study at Sunset College. Being able to go there is the dream of many students, right? With that said, the girl's eyes darted around as she blinked and said, Of course, I'm so happy not because I can study at Sunset College, but because I can go to Sunset College with you. Furthermore, I can watch you defeat those lofty geniuses at Sunset College and let them know who the strongest genius here is. There are many geniuses, but I've never been one, Mingxiu said indifferently. The girl looked at Mingxiu and said excitedly, I know that you relied on your own hard work, but it can't be denied that in the eyes of outsiders, you are a true genius. You are the strongest genius in the history of our Bright Prospects College. If your father wasn't the chancellor of Bright Prospects College, you wouldn't be studying here. Famous schools like Sunset College and Holy Accord are places you should go. You won't be inferior to any of them. You will even be more outstanding. Outstanding? Mingxiu shook his head slightly and reached out to rub the girl's head. Compared to going to Sunset College, I prefer eating the bento you while basking in the sun. Got it. How many times have you said it? Haven't I been training hard recently to get a spot to go to Sunset College with you? Where would I find the time to make bento? Now that I've already obtained the qualifications, I'll give it to you tomorrow at noon. What a glutton, the girl said helplessly. At the same time, Sunset College was also discussing the exchange students at Bright Prospects College. Bright Prospects College and Sunset College had a deep relationship, so Bright Prospect College would have some spots for students from Bright Prospect College to study at Sunset College for a semester, which was 3 months. Although it was called an exchange, it was actually to let them learn advanced knowledge and theories. Sunset College would send students from the college to tutor them one-on-one. These are the spots for this year's tutors. Take a look and see if you have any objections, the managing vice-chancellor said as he pointed at the documents in front of the teachers. Wang Fei picked up the list and looked at it. She asked in surprise, "Why is Zhou Wen's name on it? Aren't the tutors all third-year and above students? Zhou Wen is only a first year. It shouldn't be his turn, right?" The managing vice-chancellor squinted his eyes and said with a smile, "Zhou Wen is in the top 10 of our school's comprehensive test. He has also defeated John and won glory for our college. If even he isn't qualified, then there aren't many students in our college who are." Wang Fei didn't wish for Zhou Wen to waste his time and energy on being a tutor. She still wanted to fight for it, but before she could say a word, the managing vice-chancellor waved his hand and said, "This matter has already been decided. There's no need to discuss it further." Seeing how determined the vice-chancellor was, Wang Fei had no choice but to swallow her words. After the meeting, before Wang Fei could seek out the managing vice-chancellor, the vice-chancellor kept Wang Fei alone. This was personally requested by Madam. The managing vice-chancellor said to Wang Fei, "Sis Lan." Wang Fei was slightly taken aback, but since it was Ouyang Lan's request, she had nothing to say. After all, she was only Zhou Wen's teacher, and Ouyang Lan was Zhou Wen's mother name. Wang Fei picked up the list again and glanced at Zhou Wen's one-on-one tutor. She saw the word Bright Prospects. Bright Prospects? Could it be the one from the Ming family? What is Sister Lan trying to do? Wang Fei looked at Mingxiu's name with an uncertain expression. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.